This is 2 hours of the most disturbing Dexter lore ever put on screen. So get comfortable, settle in, grab a blanket, and let me walk you through the scariest episodes of one of the darkest shows in television history. We're not doing rankings here. We're not making lists. What we're doing is going deep. Episode by episode, scene by scene, into the moments that made Dexter one of the most unsettling shows ever created. From the very first kill to the very last bullet, there's a thread of horror running through this franchise that most people don't fully appreciate until you lay it all out in order. And it starts in a shipping container in Miami. Before Dexter Morgan was a blood spatter analyst at the Miami Metro Police Department, before he had a code or a boat or a box of blood slides, he was a 3-year-old boy sitting in his dead mother's blood. Laura Moser was a drug informant. She was working with a Miami detective named Harry Morgan, feeding him information about the local drug trade. Santos Jimenez, Hector Estrada, and the rest of the crew running narcotics through South Florida. Laura was also Harry's secret lover. They were having an affair behind his wife Doris's back, which is a detail that becomes incredibly important later. When Laura's cover was blown, the dealers didn't just kill her. They butchered her with a chainsaw inside a shipping container at the Miami docks. And they did it in front of her 2 young sons. 3-year-old Dexter and his older brother Brian sat in that container for 2 days. 2 full days surrounded by their mother's blood and remains before Harry Morgan finally found them and pulled them out. Harry adopted Dexter, took him home, raised him as his own alongside his biological daughter Deborah. But he left Brian in the foster care system, just walked away from the other boy. Same container, same blood, same trauma, but only one of them got saved. That decision is the seed that grows into everything horrible that happens across 8 seasons of the original show, a limited series revival, a prequel, and a resurrection. One boy was saved, the other was abandoned, and both of them became killers. Now here's what makes Dexter's origin so much darker than people realize on a first viewing. Harry didn't just adopt a traumatized child and try to give him a normal life. He recognized very early on that young Dexter had violent urges that weren't going away. The kid was killing animals, showing signs of what any reasonable therapist would flag as severe antisocial behavior rooted in extreme childhood trauma. And Harry's response to this was not to seek professional help, not to put Dexter in therapy, not to try medication or behavioral intervention. Harry decided to train him. He created something called the Code of Harry. 2 core rules. Rule number 1, don't get caught. Rule number 2, only kill people who deserve it, specifically murderers who have escaped the justice system. Harry taught Dexter how to stalk, how to plan, how to prepare a kill room with plastic sheeting, how to sedate his victims with a syringe, how to wrap bodies in garbage bags and dump them in the ocean. He turned a broken child into a precision instrument of death and called it fatherhood. The training started when Dexter was a teenager. Harry took him on hunting trips that were really practice sessions. In one flashback, Harry shoots a deer but doesn't kill it. He hands Dexter a knife and tells him, "For now, this is how we'll control the urges you feel." Dexter takes the knife, approaches the wounded animal, and stabs it repeatedly. Harry watches. This is his parenting strategy. Give the boy something to kill and call it therapy. Over the years, Harry teaches Dexter the practical details of getting away with murder. How to research potential targets using police databases. How to confirm that someone has actually committed the crime they're accused of. How to acquire the chemical M99, a powerful animal tranquilizer that Dexter uses to sedate his victims before the kill. How to set up a kill room, a space completely covered in plastic sheeting so that no forensic evidence is left behind. How to dismember a body efficiently, how to dispose of the pieces at sea from a small boat. The level of detail in Harry's training is staggering when you lay it all out. He didn't just teach Dexter to kill, he taught him forensic countermeasures. He taught him how to avoid leaving DNA evidence. He taught him how to read blood spatter patterns, which conveniently became Dexter's professional specialty at the Miami Metro Police Department. Harry essentially weaponized his own police training, took everything he knew about how criminals get caught, and taught his son how to never make those mistakes. And the most twisted part is that Harry also taught Dexter how to fake being human. In flashbacks, we see Harry coaching young Dexter on how to mimic emotions, how to smile when someone tells a joke, how to look sad at a funeral, how to pretend to care about co-workers' personal lives. Fit in, Harry tells him, make them think you're one of them. The code isn't just rules for killing. It's an entire operating system for impersonating a normal person. The prequel series, Dexter Original Sin, which premiered in December 2024 on Paramount Plus with Showtime, takes us back to 1991 Miami and shows us the foundational moments of this whole system. Patrick Gibson plays the young Dexter with Michael C. Hall returning to provide the signature inner monologue voiceover, and Christian Slater plays Harry. In the very first episode, we see Dexter's first kill under the code. There's a nurse named Mary working at the hospital where Harry is being treated for a heart attack. Mary is cutting out obituary notices from newspapers and behaving strangely around patients. Young Dexter investigates and discovers that she's been administering injections laced with potassium nitrate, a lethal substance, to her patients. She's a serial killer hiding inside the healthcare system. Harry, lying in his hospital bed with a failing heart, gives Dexter permission to eliminate her. Think about that for a second. A father from a hospital bed telling his teenage son to go commit murder and framing it as protection, as a good thing. Dexter plans the kill meticulously. He confronts Mary, shows her that he knows what she's been doing, and kills her. He disposes of her body in Alligator Alley, a remote swampy area in South Florida. But he keeps her earrings as a trophy, his first souvenir, his first mistake, a pattern that will define his entire life. When Dexter comes home afterward, Harry asks him how it felt, and Dexter tells him the truth. It felt good. That moment, right there, is the true origin of the Dexter franchise. Not the shipping container, not the blood. The moment a father heard his son say that killing felt good and decided to keep going with the plan instead of pulling the emergency brake. The show's creators were very deliberate about grounding Dexter's psychology in reality rather than fantasy. The original novels by Jeff Lindsay eventually introduced supernatural elements around the Dark Passenger, suggesting it was some kind of entity. But the television series developed by James Manos Jr. and premiering on Showtime on October 1st, 2006, explicitly avoided that route. The showrunners chose grounded psychological realism. Dexter's compulsion to kill is the result of severe early childhood trauma, combined with deeply misguided parental conditioning. There's nothing supernatural about it, which honestly makes it scarier. Dr. Evelyn Vogel, who shows up in Season 8, played by Charlotte Rampling, reveals that she was the one who helped Harry design the code in the first place. A professional neuropsychiatrist looked at a traumatized child, and instead of recommending standard treatment for childhood PTSD, she helped build a behavioral framework for channeled homicide. The code wasn't some instinct Harry followed as a desperate father. It was a clinically designed system created by a mental health professional. That's deeply disturbing when you sit with it. And here's the thing that really gets to me about Harry's story. He didn't just create Dexter's code, he also created the conditions that made it necessary. Laura Moser was his informant and his lover. The drug operation that got her killed was one he was managing. When Laura's cover was blown and she was murdered, Harry bore direct responsibility for the trauma that broke his adopted son in the first place. He helped cause the wound, and then he designed a system to manage the scar tissue, not heal it, manage it. Years later, when Harry finally saw what Dexter actually looked like while killing someone, saw the look on his face, saw what the code really produced in practice, he was so horrified by what he had created that he took his own life. He couldn't face it. The architect of the code destroyed himself because he couldn't live with what his blueprint had built. Dexter's inner monologue references this throughout the series. He calls his compulsion the Dark Passenger. In Season 2, Harry's ghost appears and tells Dexter directly that he gave him the code, but the Dark Passenger was all Dexter's. Harry tries to distance himself from the monster even after death. But the show keeps circling back to the same uncomfortable truth. The Dark Passenger didn't arrive in that shipping container. It was installed piece by piece by a man who thought he was doing the right thing. That's the foundation of everything we're about to talk about. A traumatized boy, a well-intentioned but deeply misguided father, a code that was supposed to keep everyone safe, and a darkness that the code couldn't contain. The ritual that Harry taught Dexter would become one of the most recognizable sequences in television history. The plastic sheeting on the walls, the duct tape around the victim's wrists, the array of knives laid out on a stainless steel tray, the blood slide, that single drop collected from the victim's cheek before the kill, added to a wooden box of slides that Dexter keeps hidden in his apartment like a private photo album. Each step of the ritual serves a dual purpose. The plastic prevents forensic evidence, but it also creates a space separate from the normal world. When Dexter's inside his kill room, he's not a blood spatter analyst or a husband or a father. He's purely himself. The ritual strips away every mask he wears in daily life and lets the Dark Passenger drive unencumbered. The kill room is the only place where Dexter doesn't have to fake being human. Before each kill, Dexter confronts his victim with evidence of their crimes. He tapes photographs to the wall. He recites their offenses. He forces them to look at what they've done. This part of the ritual is Harry's influence. It's the moral justification that separates the code from random violence. By making the victim acknowledge their guilt, Dexter transforms the kill from murder into judgment, or at least that's what the code tells him. In reality, the confrontation is just another layer of the ritual, a psychological release mechanism that allows Dexter to enjoy the kill without feeling guilty about it. The blood slides are perhaps the most psychologically revealing element. Each slide contains a single drop of blood from a victim. Dexter keeps them organized, labeled, stored in a box that he hides with the same care that other people apply to family heirlooms. The slides are trophies, but they're also something more. They're proof of identity. Each slide confirms that Dexter is who he believes himself to be. Without the slides, the kills become memories that might fade or blur. With them, every kill is permanent and real. The box of blood slides is Dexter's true autobiography, more honest than anything he's ever said to another person. Harry designed all of this. Every element of the ritual, from the plastic to the slides, was Harry's curriculum. He taught his teenage son how to build a kill room, how to incapacitate a target, how to dispose of evidence, and how to maintain a trophy collection without getting caught. Other fathers teach their kids to throw a baseball or change a tire. Harry Morgan taught his kid to commit ritual murder and get away with it. But Harry's code only worked as long as nobody was looking too closely at Dexter. And in Season 1, someone was looking very, very closely, someone who understood Dexter better than anyone alive. His own brother, the one Harry left behind. The Ice Truck Killer is the first great villain of the Dexter franchise, and understanding who he is requires remembering what happened in that shipping container. Because the killer terrorizing Miami in Season 1 is Brian Moser, Dexter's biological brother, the boy Harry chose not to save. Brian survived the foster care system barely. Without Harry's guidance, without a code, without anyone to channel his trauma into something controlled, Brian became exactly what you'd expect a shipping container survivor to become, a killer with no rules. Where Dexter kills with surgical precision and a strict moral code, Brian kills for connection, for art, for the attention of the one person in the world who shares his blood and his pain. From the very first episode of the series, Brian is leaving messages specifically for Dexter. Bloodless, perfectly dismembered body parts arranged around Miami. Prostitutes killed and displayed with the precision of a surgeon. No blood at the scenes, everything drained, everything clean. It's the opposite of the bloody mess that defined their childhood, and that contrast is the whole point. Brian is showing Dexter what control looks like when it's not weighed down by Harry's morality. The Miami Metro Homicide Department doesn't know who they're dealing with. Lieutenant Maria LaGuerta, played by Lauren Velez, initially suspects Tony Tucci, a stadium security guard whose hand is found at a crime scene. Deborah Morgan, Dexter's adoptive sister, played by Jennifer Carpenter, works the case from the streets, going back undercover among the prostitutes she used to work with as a cop. The department chases wrong leads and false suspects while the real killer hides in plain sight. Because Brian hasn't just come to Miami to kill, he's come to reconnect with his brother, and he's done it in the most twisted way imaginable. He's created a new identity as Rudy Cooper, a prosthetics expert, and he started dating Deborah, Dexter's sister. Brian is sleeping with and romancing the one person Dexter cares about most, working his way into the family that replaced him, the family he was denied when Harry left him behind. The prosthetics background is a detail that tells you everything about Brian's psychology. He's someone who literally builds fake human parts for a living. He constructs masks and limbs and faces that look real but aren't. His entire career is a metaphor for his life. Brian Moser is a man who has been wearing fake identities for so long that the real person underneath might not even exist anymore. Rudy Cooper is just the latest prosthetic, the most elaborate mask he's ever built, and he's a terrifyingly good actor. Deborah, who is a trained detective who has studied criminal behavior, who worked undercover with prostitutes and survived dangerous situations, never once suspects that her boyfriend is the serial killer she's hunting. Brian is charming without being smarmy, attentive without being clingy. He builds the relationship slowly, carefully, earning Deborah's trust over weeks and months. He even proposes to her with a ring he took from one of his victims, a detail that's almost too cruel to process. The investigation within the department goes through several false leads. Neil Perry, a taxidermist with a history of mental illness, confesses to being the ice truck killer. He seems credible at first. He has the right profile, the right background, the right kind of creepy. But when LaGuerta shows him a severed head during interrogation, Perry completely falls apart. His confession was fake. He wanted the attention, another dead end in a case full of them. Dexter, meanwhile, is running his own parallel investigation. He's not trying to catch the killer for the department. He's trying to figure out why this particular killer seems to know him personally. The doll parts in his apartment, the smiley face on his blood slide, the crime scenes that mirror his own techniques with uncanny precision. The ice truck killer isn't just operating in Miami, he's communicating with Dexter, sending messages that only Dexter can decode. Throughout season 1, the clues pile up slowly. Dexter finds doll parts left in his apartment by the killer. He notices that the murders mirror his own methods in unsettling ways. The killer seems to know things about Dexter that nobody should know. Dexter finds a smiley face drawn on one of his blood slides, a message that someone has been inside his most private space. It's his sister's boyfriend, the man sleeping next to Deborah every night, the man who proposed to her with a stolen ring. Brian Moser, hiding behind the face of Rudy Cooper, has been inside the Morgan family for months before anyone realizes the truth. The reveal comes in the final episodes of season 1 when Deborah notices a lozenge wrapper on Rudy's yacht, connecting it to the ice truck killer. When she confronts him, Brian drops the act instantly. He tells her she shouldn't be ashamed of being fooled because many others bought his performance too. He chokes her unconscious, ties her up with duct tape, and takes her to the shipping container where their mother was murdered. This is where the season becomes truly horrifying. Brian has recreated the scene of their childhood trauma. He's brought Deborah to the exact location where Laura Moser was butchered. He straps Deborah to a table inside the container and waits for Dexter to find them. Because this was always the end game. Brian doesn't want to kill Deborah himself. He wants Dexter to do it. Brian's pitch is simple and devastating. They share the same blood, the same container, the same trauma. Harry's adoption, his code, his rules, those were artificial, imposed. The real bond is between Brian and Dexter, two brothers forged in the same violence. Brian wants Dexter to reject Harry's programming, kill Deborah, and join him. Become what they were always meant to be. Two monsters, unrestrained, and Dexter considers it. That's the part people forget. He doesn't immediately say no. He stands there, knife in hand, looking at his brother and his sister, and he actually weighs the choice. Blood versus family, nature versus nurture. The life Harry built for him versus the life he was born into. He chooses Deborah. He kills Brian, slits his throat, and stages it to look like a suicide. The season finale, Born Free, holds a 9.6 rating on IMDb, making it one of the highest rated episodes in the entire series. But the choice costs Dexter something he'll never get back. He killed his only biological family member, the one person in the world who truly understood what the shipping container did to them. Brian wasn't just a villain, he was a mirror showing Dexter what he would have become without Harry. Same trauma, same blood, same capacity for violence, but no code. Brian is the control group in the experiment of Harry Morgan's parenting. And the control group became a monster. The really scary part isn't what Brian did, it's the implication. If Harry had saved both boys, would there be two Dexters running around Miami with a code? If he'd saved neither, would both have become ice truck killers? The whole moral foundation of the show rests on the idea that Harry's intervention made Dexter better than he would have been otherwise. But looking at Brian, you have to wonder, did the code actually make Dexter better, or did it just make him more effective? Brian killed prostitutes and left art installations around Miami. Dexter kills hundreds of people over 8 seasons and dumps them in the ocean. Brian got caught in less than a year. Dexter operated for over a decade. Harry's code didn't reduce the killing, it optimized it. That's the horror hiding inside the ice truck killer storyline. The villain isn't Brian Moser. The villain is the question Brian forces you to ask about everything the show has told you up to this point. Is a trained, organized, systematic serial killer actually better than a chaotic one? Or is he just more dangerous because he's harder to catch? Brian's approach to murder was artistic but sloppy. He left clues, he created connections to his victims that could be traced. He inserted himself into Deborah's life, which created a trail of evidence that any determined investigator could eventually follow. Brian was brilliant at the craft of killing, but terrible at the discipline of concealment. He wanted to be seen, at least by Dexter. That desire for recognition was his weakness. Dexter, trained by Harry, has the opposite problem. He's so disciplined, so methodical, so careful about concealment that he can operate for years without raising suspicion. But that discipline comes at a cost. Dexter has to suppress everything genuine about himself. He has to fake every emotion, maintain every relationship as a performance, and never let his guard down with anyone. Brian was free to be himself, violent and chaotic as that self was. Dexter is imprisoned by the code, forced to maintain a mask every waking moment. The show presents this as a trade-off between freedom and safety. Brian had freedom and got caught within a year. Dexter has safety and has been imprisoned in his own disguise for his entire life. Neither option is actually good, one just has a longer shelf life. What's particularly haunting about Brian's story is the way it ends between the brothers. Dexter doesn't kill Brian in a fight. He doesn't capture him through superior strategy. Brian essentially gives him the opportunity. He lays Deborah on the table and presents Dexter with a choice, fully expecting that blood will win over conditioning. When Dexter chooses Deborah instead, Brian doesn't resist his own death. He accepts it. In his final moments, Brian seems almost relieved. He spent his whole life trying to find the one person who might understand him. And now he has his answer. Dexter chose Harry's world over Brian's, the code over blood, the adopted family over the biological one. That acceptance makes Brian's death one of the saddest moments in the series. He's a serial killer who murdered innocent women. He kidnapped Deborah and would have killed her. He's objectively a monster. But he's also a child who was abandoned in a system that destroyed him, reaching out to the only family he has left, and being rejected one final time. Dexter kills Brian not because Brian is the worst person in the story, but because Dexter has been programmed to protect the life Harry built for him. Brian dies because Harry's code is stronger than a brother's love. That's tragic no matter how you look at it. There's also the question of what would have happened if Harry had adopted both boys. If Brian had been given the same code, the same training, the same behavioral framework, would he have become a controlled killer like Dexter? Or would his need for recognition and emotional connection have made the code impossible to follow? The show suggests that Brian's personality was fundamentally incompatible with Harry's approach. Brian needed to be known. He needed someone to see him and understand him. The code requires invisibility. You can't follow rule number 1, don't get caught, if your deepest psychological need is to be recognized. This incompatibility raises another uncomfortable question about Harry's choice. Did Harry leave Brian in the foster system because he couldn't save both boys? Or did he assess both children, recognize that Brian's psychology was less controllable, and select the one who was more likely to follow instructions? If Harry chose Dexter over Brian based on manageability rather than emotional attachment, that transforms the adoption from an act of love into an act of triage. Harry picked the boy he could shape and discarded the one he couldn't. We'll never know for certain because Harry's motivations are filtered through flashbacks and ghost conversations that may not be reliable. But the possibility alone is chilling. And Brian's existence, his violence, his chaos, his death at Dexter's hand is the permanent reminder that Harry's approach was selective, not universal. The code didn't save a child. It saved one specific child under controlled conditions, and the other child paid for it with his life. Dexter killed his own brother to protect the life Harry built for him, but that life was about to come under threat from a very different direction, because in Season 2, someone found the bodies. If you're enjoying this deep dive, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. We've got a long way to go tonight. Season 2 of Dexter opens with the worst possible scenario for a serial killer who dumps his victims in the ocean. Divers exploring the seabed off the coast of Miami discovered Dexter's underwater graveyard. Dozens of dismembered body parts in garbage bags stacked on the ocean floor like some kind of grotesque filing system. The FBI gets involved immediately, and Special Agent Frank Lundy, played by Keith Carradine, arrives to lead the investigation into what the media calls the Bay Harbor Butcher. Think about Dexter's situation here. He's a blood spatter analyst working inside the very police department that is now hunting for him. Every day, he walks into Miami Metro, sits at his desk, and watches his colleagues try to figure out who the Bay Harbor Butcher is while the answer is sitting right there in the forensics lab eating a ham sandwich. The investigation creates this constant, suffocating tension that runs through the entire season. Lundy is methodical and smart. He's not fooled easily. And he starts narrowing the suspect pool in ways that make Dexter increasingly nervous. Meanwhile, Sergeant James Dokes, played by Eric King, has always had a gut feeling about Dexter. Dokes is the one character in the entire department whose instincts are dead accurate from day one. He tells Dexter to his face that something is wrong with him, follows him, confronts him, gets in his space. Dokes is the kind of cop who trusts his instincts over evidence, and his instincts are screaming that the quiet blood guy in the lab is hiding something monstrous. He's right, and his reward for being right is one of the most unfair fates in television history. What makes Dokes such a compelling character is that he's the anti-Dexter in every way. Where Dexter is quiet and controlled, Dokes is loud and aggressive. Where Dexter hides behind politeness, Dokes leads with confrontation. Where Dexter manipulates people into liking him, Dokes makes no effort to be liked by anyone. He's abrasive, he's difficult, and he's absolutely correct about everything he suspects. The dynamic between them becomes a cat and mouse game that stretches across the entire season. Dokes follows Dexter to crime scenes during off hours. He tracks Dexter's movements. He shows up unannounced at Dexter's apartment. In one memorable scene, Dokes tells Dexter he'll see him for pizza night, which is clearly not an invitation but a threat. He's telling Dexter that he's watching, always watching, and that sooner or later the mask is going to slip. But Dokes has his own complications. He has a violent history in special forces that the show explores through flashbacks and subplot. He's killed people in the line of duty and carries his own form of darkness, though nothing close to Dexter's. The show uses Dokes to ask whether the line between a soldier and a killer is as clear as society pretends. Dokes has taken lives with government permission. Dexter takes lives with Harry's permission. Is there really a difference, or is it just paperwork? While the investigation closes in, Dexter picks up a complication he doesn't need. He starts attending Narcotics Anonymous meetings as part of his cover story to explain his strange behavior, and his sponsor turns out to be Lila West, played by Jamie Murray. Lila is manipulative, obsessive, artistically chaotic, and dangerously unhinged. She becomes sexually and psychologically entangled with Dexter, and she's the kind of person who treats other people's boundaries like suggestions. The relationship between Dexter and Lila is toxic from the start, but it serves a purpose in the narrative. Lila is drawn to darkness. She doesn't know exactly what Dexter is, but she can sense the void in him, and she finds it attractive. She's the first person other than Brian who seems to see through Dexter's mask and like what's underneath. That makes her useful to Dexter in the short term and incredibly dangerous in the long term. Lila represents a specific type of danger that the show would revisit with Hannah McKay in season 7. She's someone who is attracted to Dexter's darkness rather than repelled by it. Where Rita loved the normal version of Dexter, the version he performed for the world, Lila is drawn to the real thing. She doesn't want the mask, she wants the monster underneath. And that's seductive to Dexter because it offers something he's never had before. The possibility of being fully known and still accepted. But Lila's acceptance is conditional and self-serving. She's not a partner in Dexter's mission. She's a chaos agent who attaches herself to intensity because she can't generate her own sense of meaning. When she tells Dexter that she once burned down a building with her ex-boyfriend inside, she's not confessing with remorse. She's bragging. She's showing Dexter her credentials. See, I'm damaged too. We're the same. The parallel between Lila and Brian is intentional. Both of them approach Dexter with the same pitch. We understand you. We accept you. We can be your real family. But where Brian offered brotherhood through shared blood, Lila offers partnership through shared pathology. Both of them see Dexter clearly, and both of them are destroyed because seeing Dexter clearly means getting too close to the blast radius. Rita, by contrast, never sees Dexter clearly. She loves the performance, the carefully constructed version of a normal man that Dexter maintains for the world. And that's what keeps her safe for 3 seasons, until Arthur Mitchell proves that even the performance can't protect the people around Dexter when a bigger monster comes along. The Dokes problem escalates throughout the season. Dokes follows Dexter to his boat. He discovers inconsistencies in Dexter's alibis. He physically confronts him multiple times. Dokes is the only person in Miami Metro who can't be charmed or deflected. So Dexter does something desperate. He captures Dokes and locks him inside a remote cabin in the Everglades. Keeps him alive but in prison, trying to figure out what to do with a police sergeant who knows his secret. And this is where Lila enters the picture in the worst possible way. She discovers where Dexter's keeping Dokes. She goes to the cabin, and instead of calling the police or freeing Dokes or doing anything a normal person would do, she blows the cabin up. Kills Dokes in the explosion. and the resulting crime scene is staged in a way that frames Dokes himself as the Bay Harbor Butcher. The FBI closes the case. The media reports that Sergeant James Dokes, the Bay Harbor Butcher, died in a cabin explosion while cooking methamphetamine. His name is destroyed. His legacy is erased. His mother and sisters have to live with the public belief that their son and brother was a serial killer who murdered dozens of people. And none of it is true. Dexter goes to Paris and murders Lila to tie up the loose end. She dies because she knew too much and was too unpredictable to leave alive. 2 people dead to protect Dexter's secret. An innocent sergeant framed for crimes he didn't commit. A disturbed woman killed in a foreign country where nobody would connect it back to Miami. Dokes' legacy lives on, in one way he probably wouldn't have chosen. His aggressive catchphrase became one of the most widely circulated internet memes of the late 2000s and 2010s. The man was murdered, framed, and dishonored, and pop culture turned him into a punchline. That's a particular kind of cruelty that the show never really addresses. The real horror of Season 2 isn't the investigation, it's the system. Dexter works inside law enforcement. He has access to evidence, case files, forensic databases, surveillance schedules. He knows when the heat is getting close because he's literally sitting in the room when they discuss it. The Bay Harbor Butcher investigation proves that Dexter's position inside the police department isn't just convenient for his cover story. It's essential to his survival. He's a predator hiding inside the institution designed to catch predators, and the institution's own structure protects him. When Lundy and the FBI were building their case, they were doing good police work, solid detective work based on evidence and methodology. And they got the wrong guy, not because they were incompetent, but because the real killer was inside the system, manipulating evidence and steering the investigation away from himself in real time. Dexter contaminated the process from within, and nobody could see it because nobody suspected that a mild-mannered lab tech could be the most prolific serial killer in South Florida. That's what makes the Bay Harbor Butcher arc so unsettling. It's not about whether Dexter will get caught. It's about the realization that systems designed to protect people can be hijacked by the very threats they're supposed to prevent. Dexter isn't some criminal mastermind outsmarting the police through brilliant schemes. He's a guy with a badge and a database password who knows when to move his boat and when to volunteer for double shifts. The insider threat angle of Season 2 resonates far beyond the fictional world of the show. Think about any institution you trust: a hospital, a school, a police department, a church. Now imagine that the person responsible for maintaining the integrity of that institution, the person with access to its most sensitive information, is also the biggest threat to the people it's designed to protect. That's Dexter Morgan in a nutshell. He doesn't hack the system from outside, he corrupts it from within. When the FBI sets up their investigation at Miami Metro, they physically move into the same building where Dexter works. They share office space with the man they're hunting. Lundy walks past Dexter's lab every morning. They eat in the same break room, attend the same briefings. Dexter can hear the investigation getting closer because he's literally in the room when they discuss suspects. He adjusts his behavior in real time based on information that no external suspect would ever have access to. At one point during the investigation, Dexter volunteers to help with a forensic analysis of his own victims' remains. He's assigned to examine body parts that he personally dismembered and dumped. He handles evidence from his own crimes while wearing a Miami Metro lab coat. The surreal audacity of that situation, a serial killer examining his own kill sites as part of the official investigation into himself, is something the show plays for dark humor. But underneath the irony is a genuinely frightening premise. How do you catch someone who is embedded in the very process designed to catch him? The answer, as Season 2 proves, is that you don't. Not through the system, anyway. Dokes catches Dexter through instinct and personal observation, not through forensic evidence or departmental protocols. And for his trouble, Dokes ends up dead in a cabin explosion, framed for crimes he didn't commit, his legacy destroyed. The system didn't fail because it was incompetent. It failed because it was infiltrated. And that's a much scarier form of failure because it means the rules don't protect you when the threat is already inside the house. The season ends with Dexter seemingly safe. Dokes is dead and blamed. Lila is dead in Paris. The investigation is closed. Lundy leaves Miami. And Dexter goes back to his routine of killing by moonlight and analyzing blood spatters by day. Season 2 also introduces one of the show's most important recurring themes, the idea that Dexter's addiction to killing mirrors substance addiction. His cover story during this season involves attending Narcotics Anonymous meetings, but the parallel is more than just a disguise. Dexter describes his urge to kill in the same language that addicts use about drugs. The compulsion, the withdrawal, the temporary relief followed by the need for more. At one NA meeting, Dexter shares with the group using his real first name. He tells them there's something dark inside him, and when the dark passenger is driving, he feels alive. He says nothing else could love him, and wonders if that's just something the darkness tells him. That speech is one of the most honest things Dexter ever says. He's describing his relationship with killing in front of a room full of strangers using the language of addiction, and every word of it is true. The group applauds because they think he's talking about drugs, but he's confessing to serial murder in a church basement and nobody can tell the difference. The addiction parallel becomes a framework for understanding Dexter across the entire series. He can resist for a while. He can white-knuckle his way through periods of abstinence. But the compulsion always comes back. The dark passenger always takes the wheel eventually, and every time he feeds it, the next time becomes harder to resist. Just like any addiction, the tolerance builds and the cost escalates. Season 3 brings Miguel Prado, played by Jimmy Smits, an assistant district attorney who discovers Dexter's secret and wants in. Miguel represents what happens when the code is shared with someone who doesn't have Harry's constraints. Miguel starts using Dexter's methods to eliminate political rivals and personal enemies. The partnership corrupts the code from a vigilante framework into a tool for personal vengeance, and Dexter ultimately has to kill Miguel to stop the escalation. But Miguel's season, while important for Dexter's character development, is really just the warm-up act for what comes next. He even gets married to Rita, has a baby named Harrison, settles into something that looks, from the outside, like a perfectly normal suburban life. But normal was never going to last for Dexter Morgan, because in Season 4, he meets someone who proves that monsters can hide in plain sight for decades. Someone who maintained a perfect suburban facade while committing ritualistic murders across the country for over 30 years. Someone who would destroy everything Dexter loved and leave his infant son sitting in a pool of blood. The Trinity Killer is coming, and what happens next is widely considered the scariest, most devastating season of television Showtime has ever produced. I need to walk you through Season 4 in detail because when you see the full picture of what happens, it becomes clear why this is the season that changed everything. Not just for Dexter as a character, but for the entire franchise. This is the season that proved the show was willing to take everything from its main character and leave him bleeding. At the start of Season 4, Dexter's in a place he's never been before. He married Rita at the end of Season 3. They have a baby son named Harrison. Dexter's living in a suburban house with 2 stepkids, a wife, and an infant. And he's trying to balance late-night kills with early morning feedings. The season premiere is called Living the Dream, and it opens with Dexter behind the wheel of his car at night, narrating his classic opening line. "Tonight's the night." Sounds like he's about to kill someone. Then you realize he's just desperately trying to get home to sleep. The baby won't stop crying. He's running on fumes. His morning routine is a disaster. He misses the mosquito bite, pulls on a stained shirt, breaks a shoelace. It's a comedy of exhaustion, and it sets up the entire thematic arc of the season. Dexter is trying to be a normal family man, but a normal family man can't also be a serial killer. Something has to give. While Dexter is struggling with diapers and daycare pickups, the Trinity Killer enters the story. and this is where the season becomes genuinely terrifying. Arthur Mitchell, played by John Lithgow, is a serial killer who has been active for over 30 years. 3 decades of ritualistic murder across the United States without ever being identified. The FBI had a file on him, but they never accepted it as proof of a single killer. The only person who took the case seriously was Special Agent Frank Lundy, who came out of retirement specifically to hunt Trinity in Miami. Lundy called him the Trinity Killer because of a pattern of 3 killings that repeated in each cycle. First, a young woman murdered in a bathtub. Her femoral artery slit while the killer holds a mirror up to watch her face as she dies. Second, a mother forced to jump to her death from a tall building. Third, a father beaten to death with a hammer or similar blunt object. 3 kills, same order, same method, roughly once a year in a different city, for 30 years. But as the season progresses, Miami Metro discovers that Trinity's cycle actually involves 4 kills, not 3. Angel Batista, played by David Zayas, speaks with law enforcement in nearly every city where Trinity operated and discovers that 5 days before each bathtub murder, a 10-year-old boy went missing. The children were kidnapped, held in a coffin Arthur built in his garage, and then buried alive. 4 victims per cycle, for over 30 years. Do the math on that. If Arthur Mitchell started killing in his 20s and operated into his 60s, that's potentially 40 cycles, 160 victims at minimum. He might be the most prolific serial killer in the history of the show, and he did it all while coaching Little League, leading a church congregation, and building houses for charity through an organization called 4 Walls, 1 Heart. Arthur's backstory explains his kill cycle, and it's one of the most disturbing origin stories in the series. When Arthur was 10 years old, he accidentally startled his sister Vera while she was in the shower. She slipped, crashed through the glass shower door, and severed her femoral artery. She bled to death before the ambulance arrived. Arthur's mother, devastated by grief, eventually committed suicide by jumping off a building. His father, consumed by alcoholism and rage, began beating Arthur relentlessly, calling him a pervert, blaming him for the deaths. Arthur eventually killed his father with a hammer. Each murder in the Trinity cycle ritualistically reenacts one of these traumas. The bathtub victim represents his sister, the jumper represents his mother, the bludgeoning victim represents his father, and the kidnapped boy represents Arthur himself as a child, trapped and helpless. Dexter discovers Arthur's identity by catching him in the act during a stakeout and then following him home. And what he finds shocks him. Arthur Mitchell has a wife, Sally, 2 teenagers, Jonah and Rebecca. He's a deacon at his church. He leads the 4 Walls, 1 Heart home building charity, which conveniently allows him to travel to different cities every year, providing cover for his kill cycles and dump sites for his earliest victims. Dexter becomes fascinated. Here's a serial killer who has done what Dexter always dreamed of doing, maintaining a double life for decades without getting caught, while also raising a family and participating in the community. Dexter uses the alias Kyle Butler to befriend Arthur, joins his church, and starts learning from him. He wants to understand how Arthur balances family life with serial murder. This is Dexter's fatal mistake. Instead of killing Arthur at the first opportunity, which the code clearly demands, Dexter delays. He studies, he bonds, he treats a 30-year serial killer like a mentor figure while people continue to die. The Thanksgiving episode, Season 4, Episode 9, titled Hungry Man, is one of the most tense episodes in the entire series. Dexter is invited to Thanksgiving dinner at the Mitchell home, and he gets a front row seat to the truth behind Arthur's family facade. Arthur is a domestic tyrant. He terrorizes his wife into silence. He physically abuses his son, Jonah. He locks his daughter, Rebecca, in her bedroom. The warm family man from church is a monster behind closed doors, and his family is trapped in a prison of fear. During the dinner, Arthur breaks a serving dish, and the entire family freezes. His wife immediately starts cleaning it up while apologizing. His daughter doesn't make eye contact. His son flinches when Arthur reaches for the salt. And Dexter, sitting at this table, realizes that he's been admiring a version of Arthur that never existed. The balance he thought Arthur had achieved is actually just control through terror. Arthur doesn't maintain a family life despite being a killer. He maintains a family life as part of being a killer. The abuse is part of the ritual. Dexter's hesitation costs people their lives. While he's playing house with Arthur, Frank Lundy is shot and killed on a Miami street. The investigation reveals that the shooter was Christine Hill, a journalist who turns out to be Arthur's secret daughter from a previous relationship. Arthur had so many victims, so many connections, that even his own children were committing murder to protect his legacy. What really makes the Thanksgiving episode unforgettable is the contrast. The Morgans are also having Thanksgiving. Rita is cooking for a packed house. Cody says he's thankful for Dexter. It's warm and messy and real. But at the Mitchell house, dinner is a performance of terror. When Arthur carves the turkey, everyone at the table holds their breath. When he asks someone to pass a dish, it sounds like an interrogation. Arthur Mitchell turned the most American family tradition into a ritual of psychological torment. And Dexter is sitting right there, watching it happen, realizing too late that this man is not someone to learn from. He's someone to fear. There's also the matter of Arthur's secret daughter, Christine Hill, played by Courtney Ford. Christine is a journalist covering the Miami Metro beat, and she's secretly Trinity's biological child from a relationship Arthur abandoned years earlier. Christine is so desperate for her father's approval that she murders Special Agent Frank Lundy to protect him. Lundy was getting too close to identifying Trinity, so Christine shot him on a Miami street. She also shot Deborah in the same attack, though Deborah survived. Christine's story is a smaller scale version of the same tragedy that defines the whole show. A parent with homicidal tendencies produces a child who inherits the violence. Arthur wasn't present in Christine's life, but his influence was still strong enough to turn her into a killer. Just like Harry's code shaped Dexter, just like Dexter's absence would eventually shape Harrison. The violence passes down regardless of whether the parent is present or absent. It finds a way. When the walls close in, and Deborah's investigation brings the department within one step of identifying Arthur as Trinity, everything accelerates. Arthur discovers Dexter's real name and occupation. He walks into the Miami Metro Police Department, confronts Dexter in the Homicide Division hallway, and essentially dares him to do something about it. The brass of it is staggering. A 30-year serial killer strolling into a police station and taunting a blood spatter analyst. Arthur isn't afraid of being caught because he's already planning to run. He's closed his bank accounts, pulled his cash, and is ready to disappear. Everything comes to a head in the season 4 finale, titled The Getaway. It's the 48th episode of the series overall, directed by Steve Schill, with a teleplay by Wendy West and Melissa Rosenberg based on a story by Rosenberg and Scott Reynolds. This was the final episode overseen by showrunner Clyde Phillips, who ran seasons 1 through 4 and is widely credited with the show's golden era. Arthur discovers Dexter's real identity. He walks into the Miami Metro Police Department, confronts Dexter face-to-face in the Homicide Division, and makes it clear he knows exactly who Dexter is and where he lives. Arthur starts closing his bank accounts, preparing to skip town, and Dexter realizes he's out of time. Dexter captures Arthur in a parking garage, sedates him, brings him to a kill room. Arthur's last words before Dexter kills him are 4 words that change everything. It's already over. Dexter doesn't understand what that means. Not yet. He kills Arthur Mitchell on his table and heads home thinking the nightmare is finally over. He calls Rita on the way. Her phone rings and rings. No answer. He assumes she's already on her way to the Keys for their honeymoon. He arrives at the house. It's quiet. Rita's phone is on the kitchen chair, in her purse. She never left. Dexter hears Harrison crying, follows the sound to the bathroom, turns on the light. Rita is lying in the bathtub, dead. The water is bright red. Her femoral artery has been cut. Harrison, their infant son, is sitting on the bathroom floor in a pool of his mother's blood, wailing. The exact same scene from Dexter's childhood. The shipping container recreated in a suburban bathroom, a mother murdered, a child sitting in her blood. Arthur Mitchell didn't just kill Rita, he created a second Dexter. He planted the same trauma, the same origin story in the next generation. Dexter picks up his blood-covered son, and as he holds Harrison, he sees himself as a 3-year-old, covered in his own mother's blood, being lifted over Harry Morgan's shoulder. The cycle hasn't broken, it's repeated. The Getaway aired on December 13th, 2009 on Showtime. It holds a 9.8 rating on IMDb, the highest-rated episode in the entire Dexter franchise. John Lithgow's performance as Arthur Mitchell earned him both the Golden Globe Award and the Primetime Emmy Award. In 2016, Rolling Stone magazine ranked the Trinity Killer number 34 on their list of the 40 greatest TV villains of all time. The season itself is consistently cited by critics as the best season of the show and one of the finest seasons of prestige television ever produced. But beyond the awards and the accolades, what makes this finale so devastating is what it means for the story going forward. Rita trusted Dexter. She accepted his demons, even the ones she didn't fully understand. She stood by him through mood swings, disappearances, a secret apartment, all the red flags that a more suspicious person might have caught. And her reward for that trust was a bathtub murder committed by a serial killer that Dexter could have stopped months earlier. Arthur Mitchell proved something that Dexter never wanted to face. Arrogance is deadlier than any knife. Dexter spent the season treating Arthur like a case study when he should have been treating him like a target. He prioritized his own curiosity over his family's safety. And Rita paid the price. There's a deeper psychological layer to why Dexter was drawn to Arthur that the show handles brilliantly across the season. Dexter didn't just admire Arthur's ability to maintain a double life, he envied it. At the start of season 4, Dexter is exhausted, overwhelmed, and failing at the basic mechanics of being a husband and father. He can't stay awake during the day, he's missing meetings, he's forgetting appointments. His marriage to Rita is strained because he disappears at night and can't explain where he goes. Arthur, from the outside, seemed to have solved all of those problems. He appeared to be a devoted husband, a caring father, an active community member, and a serial killer all at the same time. He seemed to have found the balance that Dexter was desperately searching for. The idea that you could be a monster and a good family man simultaneously was intoxicating to Dexter because it validated the life he was trying to build. But the Thanksgiving episode shattered that illusion completely. Arthur's balance was built on terror, not harmony. His wife obeyed him because she was afraid of being beaten. His children performed their roles because defiance meant punishment. The family dinners, the church appearances, the charity work, all of it was a stage set that Arthur maintained through violence and intimidation. The balance Dexter wanted didn't exist. It was never possible. You cannot be a functioning serial killer and a genuinely loving parent. The show proved this through Arthur and then proved it again through Dexter himself across the remaining seasons. Arthur's influence on the show extends far beyond season 4. His murder of Rita creates the central wound that drives everything after it. Dexter's guilt about Rita shapes his relationship with Hannah McKay in season 7. It influences his decision to flee to Argentina in season 8. It haunts his exile in Iron Lake during New Blood. And it traumatizes Harrison so deeply that the boy develops his own violent impulses, creating the generational cycle that defines the franchise. In many ways, Arthur Mitchell won. He died on Dexter's table, but his final kill achieved exactly what he intended. He broke Dexter's family the way his own family was broken. He created another boy sitting in his mother's blood. He proved that the code, for all its rules and rituals, couldn't protect the people Dexter claimed to love. Arthur's ghost haunts the franchise because his argument was correct. You can't be both, and trying will destroy everyone around you. The showrunner at the time, Clyde Phillips, later said that Rita's death began to feel inevitable as the story evolved. The writing staff didn't know exactly how the finale would conclude until late in the season, but Phillips said they felt obligated to do more than simply kill the villain. They needed consequences, real, permanent consequences that would fundamentally alter the course of the show. The parallel between Dexter's childhood and Harrison's is the most intentional piece of storytelling in the franchise. Both boys were found in their mother's blood. Both lost their mothers to violent murder. Both were rescued by flawed men who had shaped their futures in irreversible ways. The question the show plants in this moment, a question that wouldn't be answered for over a decade, is whether Harrison would grow up to become another Dexter. Whether the cycle of violence that started in a shipping container would continue through a bathtub in a suburban home. Season 5 deals with the immediate fallout from Rita's death, and it's worth talking about because it shows how Dexter processes grief, or more accurately, how he fails to process it. The season opens with Dexter standing outside his house, holding a crying Harrison, surrounded by police cars. Deborah runs up and asks what happened. Dexter says 4 words that nearly destroy him. "Rita's inside, it was me." He means that Rita's death is his fault, that his lifestyle, his secrets, his delay in killing Arthur caused this. But to a cop standing at a crime scene, "It was me" sounds like a confession. Deborah immediately tells him never to say that again. The guilt eats at Dexter in a way that nothing else in the series does. He tells Harrison, who is too young to understand, that Rita was lucky to have him. Then he whispers, "I wouldn't say so. She trusted me and now she's dead." He touches one of Rita's dresses. "Like your sister says, I'm toxic. You'd all be better off without me." This is the closest Dexter comes to genuine self-awareness in the entire original run. He sees himself clearly for a moment, and what he sees disgusts him. But the moment passes. Dexter doesn't change. He doesn't quit killing. He doesn't turn himself in. He processes Rita's death the same way he processes everything difficult. He compartmentalizes it, files it away, and gets back to work. Within a few episodes, he's found a new mission. Lumen Pierce, played by Julia Stiles in an award-nominated performance, is a woman who is kidnapped and brutalized by a group of wealthy men running a rape and murder ring. Dexter helps Lumen get vengeance on her attackers, and their partnership becomes a healing experience for both of them. But it's also a distraction from the grief he should be sitting with. Lumen leaves at the end of season 5. She tells Dexter that her dark passenger has faded now that her rapists are dead. She doesn't need the violence anymore. She can walk away from it. Dexter can't. And that contrast tells you everything about the difference between someone who was traumatized as an adult and someone who was traumatized as a toddler. Lumen's wounds were fresh enough to heal. Dexter's wounds were set in bone. The seasons that follow Rita's death, seasons 5 through 8, are generally considered by fans and critics to represent a creative decline. The showrunner transition is significant. Clyde Phillips, who ran seasons 1 through 4 and oversaw the Trinity Killer arc, departed after season 4. Chip Johannesson took over for the transitional season 5. Then Scott Buck became showrunner for seasons 6 through 8. Buck's tenure is historically viewed as a period of declining quality, culminating in the controversial series finale. The critical consensus is clear. The Rotten Tomatoes score for season 8 sits at 35%, compared to the near universal acclaim of season 4. But even in the weaker seasons, there are moments of genuine horror, and the biggest one comes at the end of season 6. John Lithgow himself confirmed in an interview that Arthur killed Rita. The show keeps the actual murder off screen, and the killer's identity is technically never stated directly in the episode. But Lithgow confirmed it immediately after the original broadcast. Arthur went to Dexter's house while Dexter was still hunting him. He found Rita. He performed his ritual. And he whispered to baby Harrison, "Don't worry. Daddy will be home soon." That detail, that single line, later revealed in New Blood when Harrison's repressed memories surface. That's the cruelest thing in the entire franchise. Arthur didn't kill Rita as a warning or as revenge. He killed her as a gift. He was showing Dexter that they were the same, that no amount of codes or rules or suburban play acting could change what they both were. Arthur gave Harrison the same origin story that Dexter had, as if to say, "See? Now your son will understand you the way nobody else can." After Rita's death, the show changed. The tone shifted permanently. Dexter became darker, more reckless, less interested in maintaining his human disguise. Seasons 5 through 8 deal with the fallout in different ways. Dexter grieves, then moves on. He finds new partners, new enemies, new reasons to keep killing. But he never recovers from what happened in that bathtub. The guilt of it, the knowledge that his arrogance got Rita killed, hangs over everything that follows. And the people around him started to figure out who he really was, starting with the one person who loved him most, his sister Deborah. And what she discovers in Season 6 will begin a chain of events that destroys them both. Now let's talk about the Doomsday Killer, because Season 6 contains the single most important scene in the entire original series. Not the scariest kill, not the most gruesome tableau, but the moment that breaks the show's fundamental premise wide open. The moment Deborah Morgan walks into a church and finds her brother standing over a dead body with a knife in his hand. Before we get there, the season itself revolves around Travis Marshall, played by Colin Hanks. Travis is a religious zealot who stages elaborate murder scenes based on the Book of Revelation. The killings are theatrical in a way the show hadn't really done before. Victims arranged as horsemen of the apocalypse. Bodies posed with angel wings, snakes and locusts and fire. It's all designed to bring about the end of the world, at least in Travis's mind. Working alongside Travis, or so it appears, is Professor James Geller, played by Edward James Olmos. Geller is presented as the mentor figure, the theologian guiding Travis's hand. They argue, they plan, they discuss scripture while people die around them. For most of the season, it looks like a partnership between a true believer and his spiritual guide. Then the show pulls the rug out. Geller has been dead the entire time. He's a hallucination. Travis killed his own mentor long ago and has been talking to a figment of his imagination for the entire season. Every conversation, every argument, every moment of seeming collaboration was Travis alone in a room, speaking to a corpse or to thin air. Travis Marshall is a one-man doomsday cult. The Geller twist isn't particularly surprising to most viewers. A lot of people saw it coming because the show had already done a similar ghost advisor concept with Harry appearing to Dexter throughout the series. But the twist serves an important narrative purpose. It underlines the show's recurring theme about the lies people tell themselves to justify violence. Travis genuinely believes he's doing God's work. He's not pretending, he's not cynical about it. He actually thinks these murders will trigger the apocalypse. His delusion is complete. What makes the Doomsday storyline relevant to our conversation about the scariest episodes is not Travis himself. He's theatrical, but ultimately not as psychologically complex as Brian or Arthur or even Kurt. The real significance of Season 6 is the infrastructure it builds for what comes next. While Dexter is chasing Travis through apocalyptic crime scenes, Deborah is in therapy, working through her feelings about her father, her brother, and the men in her life who keep disappointing her. Her therapist pushes her to examine why she's drawn to damaged, emotionally unavailable men, why she keeps choosing partners who are broken, why her relationship with Dexter seems to be the only stable emotional connection in her life. This therapeutic journey is the show preparing the audience for the church scene. Deborah isn't just going to stumble upon Dexter's secret randomly, she's been psychologically primed to see the truth. Her defenses are down, her willingness to question the people she loves is at an all-time high. When she walks into that church, she's not the same Deborah who would have made excuses for her brother in season 1. She's a woman who has finally started asking honest questions about her life. And the honest answer she finds is the worst possible one. Dexter tracks Travis to a church where he plans to complete his final tableau. Dexter subdues him, wraps him in plastic on the altar, and prepares to perform his ritual kill. And this is the moment. Deborah Morgan has been going through her own journey this season. She's been promoted to lieutenant. She's in therapy. She's been working through her complicated feelings about her brother, her father, her career, and her own identity. Her therapist pushes her to examine her relationship with Dexter. And Deborah starts to realize that her feelings for her adoptive brother are more complex and more intense than she's ever acknowledged. She goes to the church to find Dexter, walks in the door, and sees him. Dexter Morgan, her brother, standing in the glow of candlelight, knife in hand, over the plastic-wrapped body of Travis Marshall on the church altar. Deborah doesn't scream, doesn't run, she just stares. And in that look, 6 seasons of carefully maintained secrecy collapse into nothing. This is the way the world ends. The season 6 finale holds a 9.2 on IMDb. But the rating doesn't capture the seismic impact of that final scene. For 6 years, the entire show was built on one dramatic question. Will Deborah find out? Will the person who loves Dexter most discover who he really is? And now she knows. She's seen it with her own eyes. There's no cover story, no alibi, no amount of smooth talking that can undo what she just witnessed. The Doomsday Killer murders were scary in a theatrical, over-the-top way. Bodies posed with angel wings and serpents, victims arranged as biblical plagues. But the real horror of season 6 has nothing to do with Travis Marshall. It's the look on Deborah's face. It's the realization that her brother, the person she built her entire emotional world around, has been lying to her every single day of their lives. Everything she thought she knew about her family, about her father, about the person she trusts more than anyone is wrong. That scene changes the DNA of the show. From this point forward, it's no longer about whether Dexter will get caught. It's about what happens to the people who learn his secret. And as season 7 proves, learning Dexter's secret is like swallowing poison. It doesn't kill you right away. It destroys you slowly from the inside. Think about what Deborah is actually processing in that moment. Her brother, who she grew up with, who she confided in about her worst experiences, who comforted her after the ice truck killer nearly killed her, who held her when relationships failed and careers stalled, has been murdering people and lying about it for their entire adult lives. Every breakfast they shared, every family dinner, every phone call where Dexter pretended to be a normal person was a performance. Deborah's entire relationship with her brother is based on a fiction so complete that it rewrites her understanding of reality itself. And it gets worse when you factor in Harry. If Dexter has been killing since he was a teenager and Harry trained him to do it, then Harry was lying to Deborah too. Her father, the man she worshipped, who she spent her entire career trying to make proud, was also hiding this monstrous secret. The father who taught her right from wrong was simultaneously teaching her brother how to commit perfect murders. Deborah's discovery in the church doesn't just expose Dexter, it retroactively poisons every memory she has of her childhood, her father, and her family. That retroactive poisoning is what makes season 7 so compelling. Deborah doesn't just have to decide what to do about Dexter in the present, she has to reevaluate everything she believed about the past. Was Harry a good man? Was her childhood real? Were the moments of genuine connection she shared with Dexter actually genuine, or was she just part of his cover? The foundation of her entire identity crumbles, and she has to rebuild herself from the ground up, while simultaneously managing the most dangerous secret in Miami. Season 7 picks up directly from that church scene, and it puts Deborah through the most brutal emotional journey of any character in the series. She doesn't turn Dexter in, she doesn't call the police. She doesn't do any of the things a lieutenant in the Miami Metro Homicide Department is supposed to do when she witnesses a murder. Instead, she tries to fix him. Deborah's first instinct is control. She moves in with Dexter, monitors his behavior, tries to keep him from killing by watching him constantly. She genuinely believes she can manage her brother's compulsion through sheer force of will. The same way Harry believed he could manage it through the code, and just like Harry, she's wrong. The emotional toll on Deborah is visible from the first episode of the season. She's not sleeping, she's drinking more. She jumps at sudden noises. She's carrying the weight of a secret that would destroy everything she's built as a police officer, and she's carrying it alone. Nobody at the department knows what she saw. Nobody knows what she's covering up. Deborah Morgan, the woman who always had someone to confide in, whether it was her father or Lundy or Angel, is now completely isolated by a secret she can't share. The show does something smart with Deborah's arc in season 7. It shows us what happens when a fundamentally honest person is forced to lie about everything. Deborah is bad at deception. She always has been. She's the character who says exactly what she's thinking, who curses when she's frustrated, who wears her emotions on her sleeve. Forcing her to maintain a cover story requires her to become someone she's not, and the strain of it changes her on a cellular level. You can watch her posture shift across the season. She gets smaller, quieter, more guarded. The loud, profane Deborah of earlier seasons is being slowly crushed by the weight of her brother's secret. Meanwhile, Dexter doesn't fully appreciate what he's putting her through. He's grateful for her protection, but he doesn't understand the cost. He continues to kill. He starts a relationship with Hannah McKay, who is herself a murderer. He operates with the same self-absorbed focus that has always defined him, treating Deborah's emotional deterioration as a management problem rather than a crisis. While Deborah spirals trying to save Dexter from himself, the external threats pile up. The Ukrainian Koshka Brotherhood, led by Isaac Serko, played by Ray Stevenson, comes after Dexter for killing one of their people. Dexter enters a romantic relationship with Hannah McKay, played by Yvonne Strahovski, a fellow serial killer with her own body count. And Lieutenant Maria LaGuerta starts doing something nobody at Miami Metro has done since Dokes. She starts asking the right questions. LaGuerta reopens the Bay Harbor butcher case. She's never been fully satisfied with the conclusion that Dokes was the killer. She starts pulling at threads, looking at evidence, connecting dots. And those dots lead her directly to Dexter Morgan. LaGuerta is smart, politically savvy, and relentless when she believes she's right. She was wrong about Tony Tucci in season 1. And she learned from that mistake. She's not going to make the same error twice. She builds her case carefully, gathers evidence, and eventually sets a trap designed to catch Dexter in the act. LaGuerta's investigation is one of the most underrated storylines in the series. Here's a woman doing exactly what the justice system is supposed to do. She suspects a colleague is a serial killer. She gathers evidence. She follows procedure. She doesn't cut corners. She doesn't plant evidence. She does real, honest police work. And she's absolutely right about everything. Dexter Morgan is the Bay Harbor butcher. Dokes was framed. LaGuerta is the only person in the department who put it all together and had the courage to act on it. That's what makes her death so devastating. LaGuerta isn't a villain. She's not corrupt in this storyline. She's not motivated by personal grudge or political ambition. She's a good cop doing good work. And the show rewards her for it with a bullet. The lead up to the finale involves LaGuerta confronting Deborah with her suspicions about Dexter. She knows Deborah is too close to her brother to be objective. She tries to warn her. She tries to show her the evidence. But Deborah is already too far gone. She's already been covering for Dexter for months. She's already an accomplice. LaGuerta's warnings don't reach her because Deborah doesn't want to hear them. The season 7 finale is titled Surprise Motherfucker, a direct callback to Dokes' iconic catchphrase. LaGuerta lures Dexter into a kill room she's set up as a sting operation. Everything is in place for her to catch him. But Deborah arrives with a gun, and now Deborah faces the most impossible choice in the history of the show. Option 1, let LaGuerta arrest Dexter. The Bay Harbor butcher case reopens. Dexter goes to prison, probably death row since Florida has the death penalty. Deborah herself goes to prison as his accomplice since she's been covering for him for an entire season. Everything comes out. Both Morgans are destroyed. Option 2, kill LaGuerta, protect the lie, protect her brother, protect herself. Murder an innocent woman, a colleague, a person she's worked with for years, in cold blood. Deborah shoots Maria LaGuerta dead. The woman who was right about everything, who had the evidence, who was doing exactly what a good cop is supposed to do, dies on the floor of a shipping container because Deborah Morgan loved her brother more than she loved the law, more than she loved the truth, more than she loved herself. That's the line Deborah can never uncross. She didn't just cover for Dexter. She didn't just look the other way. She murdered an innocent woman to protect a serial killer. And she did it for love. The most corrupted, twisted, devastating act of love the show has ever depicted. From this point forward, Deborah is no longer Dexter's moral compass. She's his accomplice. The person who was supposed to represent everything good and honest in his life has been pulled down in his world of kill rooms and garbage bags and lies. Dexter's darkness didn't just threaten Deborah. It consumed her. She crossed the line, and there is no coming back. The aftermath of LaGuerta's murder is something Season 8 doesn't handle particularly well in terms of plot mechanics, but the psychological reality of what Deborah experiences is genuinely harrowing. She has nightmares about it. She replays the moment. She drinks to numb the guilt. In her worst moments, she fantasizes about confessing to the crime and accepting whatever punishment follows, just to be free of the weight. What makes Deborah's situation so much worse than Dexter's is that she has a conscience. Dexter can kill and compartmentalize because Harry trained him to separate the act from the emotion. But Deborah was never trained. She was never prepared for this. She's a normal person who committed an irreversible act of violence, and she has no psychological framework for processing it. The dark passenger is Dexter's coping mechanism. Deborah doesn't have one. She's carrying the weight of murder with a completely unprotected psyche. The show draws a direct line between Deborah's deterioration and the enabling behavior that allows killers to operate. Deborah didn't pull the trigger because she wanted LaGuerta dead. She pulled it because she was trapped in a system of escalating compromises. First, she agreed to keep Dexter's secret. Then she agreed to monitor him. Then she agreed to cover for his kills. Each compromise was small enough to rationalize in the moment, but they added up to a trajectory that pointed directly at LaGuerta's chest. By the time Deborah was standing in that shipping container with a gun, she had already made 100 smaller choices that made the final one feel inevitable. That's the lesson of Deborah's arc, and it's one of the most disturbing ideas the show explores. Good people don't become accomplices to murder overnight. They become accomplices through a long series of small decisions, each one a little more compromising than the last, until they look around and realize they're standing somewhere they never thought they'd be. Deborah Morgan walked into that church in Season 6 as a good cop. She walked into that shipping container in Season 7 as a killer. And she didn't even notice the transformation happening. Subscribe to our channel if you're still with us. We're just past the halfway point and the story gets even darker from here. Season 8 of Dexter is where the original series wraps up, and I'm going to be honest with you, the reception to this final season was brutal. But there are pieces of it that are genuinely disturbing, and the ending of Deborah's story is one of the most tragic arcs in the franchise. The season introduces Dr. Evelyn Vogel, a neuropsychiatrist played by Charlotte Rampling. Vogel arrives in Miami with a revelation that reframes everything we thought we knew about Dexter's origin. She helped Harry create the code. She was the clinical mind behind the behavioral framework that Harry implemented. The code of Harry wasn't just a desperate father's invention. It was a professionally designed psychological system built by someone with the credentials to know better. Vogel's presence raises uncomfortable questions. Did Harry actually know what he was doing, or was he just following instructions from a professional who had her own agenda? Did Vogel genuinely believe that channeling Dexter's violence was the best option, or did she treat him as a research subject? She talks about Dexter like he's a successful experiment, which is not how you should talk about a human being, even one who kills people. Vogel is one of the most morally ambiguous characters in the franchise, and the show doesn't give her enough time to fully explore that ambiguity. She published academic papers on psychopathy. She built a career studying violent minds, and somewhere along the way, she crossed the line from studying killers to manufacturing one. The Code of Harry wasn't born from a father's desperation alone. It was engineered by an academic who saw an opportunity to test her theories on a real subject. The implications of this revelation ripple backward through the entire series. Every kill Dexter committed was, in some sense, the output of Vogel's behavioral program. Every victim on his table was a data point in an experiment she designed and Harry implemented. Dexter was never really a free agent making independent moral choices. He was following a script written by two people who decided when he was a child that his violence should be managed rather than eliminated. And Vogel's own ending proves that her approach was fundamentally flawed. Her son Daniel, the brain surgeon, is the result of the same environment that produced Dexter. Vogel studied psychopathy, lived with it, built her career around it, and her own child became a psychopath who murdered her. She tried to apply the same logic she used with Dexter: manage the darkness, channel it, control it, and it killed her. The main threat this season is the brain surgeon, a serial killer who removes sections of his victims' brains. The investigation eventually reveals that the brain surgeon is Daniel Vogel, Evelyn's own son. Daniel kills his mother. The woman who helped design the code, who spent her career studying psychopaths, is murdered by the psychopath she raised. The parallel to Harry is unmistakable. Both parents who thought they could manage violent children died because of those children. While all of this is happening, Dexter is planning to flee to Argentina with Hannah McKay and Harrison. He wants out. After Rita's death, after the Bay Harbor Butcher investigation, after watching Deborah shoot Lagerta, Dexter has finally accepted that he can't sustain the double life anymore. He wants to take his son and the woman he loves and disappear. But the brain surgeon has one more victim. He shoots Deborah. She survives the initial wound, but suffers a massive stroke that leaves her brain dead on life support. The damage is irreversible. Deborah Morgan, the tough-talking, foul-mouthed, fiercely loyal sister who survived the ice truck killer, who survived learning her brother's secret, who crossed every moral line to protect him, is lying in a hospital bed with no brain function and no chance of recovery. Dexter disconnects her from life support, carries her body out of the hospital, takes her onto his boat, and buries her at sea the same way he disposed of his victims for 8 seasons. He wraps his sister in a sheet, holds her, and drops her into the ocean. Deborah Morgan goes to the same watery grave as Dexter's kill victims. There's something profoundly wrong about that image, and the show knows it. After disposing of Deborah's body, Dexter drives his boat directly into Hurricane Laura. The implication is that he's killing himself. The news reports his death. Harrison and Hannah leave for Argentina believing he's gone. Then the camera cuts to a lumber yard somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. Dexter is alive. He's working as a lumberjack. He's grown a beard. He lives in a small room. He stares directly into the camera with dead eyes. No expression, no inner monologue, nothing. That's how the original series ends. The series finale, Remember the Monsters, holds a rating between 4.6 and 4.9 on IMDb, making it one of the most poorly received finales in television history. Critics and fans were devastated. The idea that Dexter would abandon his son Harrison, fake his death, and exile himself to a lumberyard felt illogical and deeply unsatisfying. It was, by nearly every account, a failure of storytelling. But the part that hurts, the part that actually works as horror, is Deborah's death. Jennifer Carpenter's performance across the series earned her a loyal following, and watching her character be reduced to a brain-dead patient in a hospital bed after everything she'd been through felt like the show punishing her for loving Dexter. She didn't die in a blaze of glory. She didn't die catching a killer. She died because she was in the wrong place when a psychopath had a gun. She died because she chose Dexter over everything else in her life, and the universe repaid her loyalty with a blood clot in her brain. Deborah Morgan's death is the logical conclusion of her arc, even if the execution was flawed. She was corrupted by Dexter's secret. She murdered Lagerta. She spiraled into alcoholism and self-destruction. She lost her career, her self-respect, and her moral identity. By the time the brain surgeon's bullet finds her, Deborah has already been destroyed. The stroke just makes it literal. What makes Deborah's story arc across seasons 7 and 8 so painful to watch is the speed of her deterioration. In season 1, Deborah Morgan was the emotional core of the show. She was loud, profane, emotionally messy, but fundamentally decent. She wanted to be a good cop. She wanted to catch bad guys. She wanted to make her father proud. She had a moral compass that pointed true north even when everything around her was spinning. By season 8, that compass is shattered. Deborah is drinking heavily. She's taken a leave from the department. She's working as a private investigator, which is a step down that reflects her internal collapse. She's having panic attacks. She's contemplating suicide. In one of the most disturbing scenes of the season, Deborah is driving her car with Dexter in the passenger seat, and she deliberately swerves into a lake. She tries to kill them both. The car plunges into the water, and Deborah has to be rescued by a bystander while Dexter swims out on his own. That scene is Deborah's breaking point. She tried to murder her brother and herself simultaneously because she couldn't live with what she'd become and couldn't stand the thought of him continuing to exist. The woman who spent 6 seasons trying to catch killers deliberately attempted a murder-suicide with the biggest killer she's ever known. That's not character development. That's character annihilation. When the brain surgeon shoots Deborah later in the season, there's almost a sense of relief mixed with the horror. She's been suffering for so long, carrying a burden so impossibly heavy, that her death feels like the universe finally acknowledging that no human being can survive the kind of moral contamination Dexter represents. She carried his secret. She killed for him. She destroyed her own soul for him. And the show ends her story not with a heroic sacrifice or a dramatic confrontation, but with a blood clot, a stroke, the most mundane, unglamorous, deeply unfair way to die. Jennifer Carpenter delivered an extraordinary performance across 8 seasons of the original show and the New Blood revival, where Deborah appears as a ghostly vision haunting Dexter's conscience. In New Blood, Deborah replaces Harry as Dexter's internal voice, and her presence is significantly more hostile. Where Harry's ghost gently guided and cautioned, Deborah's ghost screams, threatens, and taunts. She calls Dexter a selfish psycho. She forces a bullet into his mouth during one hallucination. She represents the guilt and self-loathing that Dexter can no longer externalize onto a benign father figure. The real tragedy is that Deborah could have stopped all of it in that church. If she'd called for backup instead of staring at her brother in shock, if she'd turned him in when she had the chance, Lagerta would be alive. Deborah would be alive. Harrison wouldn't be an orphan. But she chose love over justice. And love in the Dexter universe is a death sentence. For 8 years after the original finale aired on September 22, 2013, that lumberjack scene was the ending. Dexter staring into the camera, Deborah at the bottom of the ocean, Harrison in Argentina. The franchise appeared to be done. But in 2021, Showtime brought it back. And this time, the story would find Dexter in the last place anyone expected, a small town in upstate New York called Iron Lake, where a new kind of monster was waiting. Dexter New Blood premiered on November 7, 2021, and gave the franchise something the original finale never provided: consequences. A decade after faking his death, Dexter Morgan is living under the alias Jim Lindsay in Iron Lake, New York. It's a small town, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where the local diner serves venison, and the high school wrestling team is a point of community pride. Dexter works at a hunting supply shop owned by a guy named Fred. He's dating Angela Bishop, the chief of police. He bowls on a team, he goes to community events. And most importantly, he hasn't killed anyone in years. He's been suppressing his dark passenger. Every day he resists the urge, he adds a tick mark to a calendar on his wall. The show doesn't tell us exactly how long his streak has been, but it's clear that Dexter has been fighting his compulsion through sheer willpower, and it's been working. Barely, tenuously, but working. The setting of Iron Lake is deliberately the opposite of Miami. Where Miami was bright, loud, tropical, and anonymous, Iron Lake is cold, quiet, snow-covered, and intimate. In Miami, Dexter could disappear into a city of millions. In Iron Lake, his neighbor knows when he comes home late. The local cops drink at the same bar. Angela can drive to his cabin in 10 minutes. There's nowhere to hide in a small town, which is exactly the point. Dexter chose this place because the intimacy of it forces him to be human, or at least to keep pretending more convincingly than he ever had to in Miami. The Deborah hallucination is different in New Blood compared to Harry's ghost in the original series. Where Harry was calm and advisory, Ghost Deborah is hostile, aggressive, and profane. She taps on Dexter's window at night with a bullet. She screams at him. She forces a bullet into his mouth during one vision. She represents the guilt and rage that Dexter suppressed when he let Deborah die. She's not a gentle guide. She's a punishment. And she's right about everything she says. She calls him a selfish psycho, an emotionally handicapped crazy person, and warns him that having Harrison around will only lead to destruction. Every prediction Ghost Deborah makes turns out to be accurate. Then two things happen that shatter his fragile peace. First, a rich kid named Matt Caldwell shows up and illegally kills a prized white deer that the local Seneca community considers sacred. Dexter encounters Matt in the woods, and the combination of Matt's arrogance, his disregard for the community, and Dexter's years of suppressed urges proves too much. Dexter kills Matt Caldwell. The dark passenger is back. Second, and far more disruptive, Harrison shows up. Dexter's son, now a teenager played by Jack Alcott, has tracked his father across the country. Hannah McKay died of pancreatic cancer 3 years earlier. Harrison found a letter Dexter had written to her that proved he was alive. After bouncing through foster homes for years, Harrison came looking for the father who abandoned him. The letter Harrison found is a crucial detail. Dexter wrote to Hannah saying, "Reach out to me if Harrison shows any dark tendencies." Think about what that tells you about Dexter's priorities. Even in exile, even after faking his death and abandoning his son, Dexter's primary concern isn't Harrison's happiness, or his education, or his emotional well-being. It's whether the dark passenger has manifested in the next generation. Dexter's letter isn't a father checking on his child. It's a scientist monitoring an experiment. Harrison's arrival forces a confrontation that Dexter has been avoiding for 10 years. On his first night in Iron Lake, Harrison asks his father the question that defines their entire relationship. "Did you leave because of what you wrote in that letter? Because of what's wrong with me?" And Dexter, to his credit, tells part of the truth. He says he left because of what he is, not what Harrison is. But that's a distinction without a difference to a teenager who spent his childhood believing his father was dead. The father-son dynamic in New Blood is one of the show's strongest elements. Harrison is angry, damaged, and struggling with his own dark impulses. He broke a wrestler's arm during a match after the kid had already tapped out. He told his girlfriend Audrey that he thinks about hurting everyone all the time. He carries vivid memories of witnessing his mother's murder, memories that surface in fragments throughout the season, including the image of Arthur Mitchell smiling at him beside the bathtub where Rita died. Harrison's arrival forces Dexter into an impossible balancing act. He's hiding Matt Caldwell's dismembered remains under a fire pit while search parties camp on his property. He's trying to reconnect with a son who resents him for faking his death. He's maintaining his Jim Lindsay cover with a police chief girlfriend, and the dark passenger is wide awake and hungry. But the real threat in New Blood isn't Dexter's relapse. It's Kurt Caldwell. Kurt is Matt's father and the most prominent citizen of Iron Lake. He owns the truck stop. He funds community projects. He coaches kids, helps neighbors, and is universally beloved. When his son goes missing, the entire town rallies behind him. Kurt is the kind of man people describe as the backbone of the community. Behind that facade, Kurt Caldwell has been murdering women for 25 years. His method is sickening in its practiced routine. He targets young women passing through Iron Lake, runaways, drifters, hitchhikers, people nobody will miss. He lures them to his property, puts them up in a comfortable room with champagne and strawberries and clean sheets. The room has a hidden camera, and the door locks from the outside. When the woman realizes she's trapped, when she sees the camera and reads the words written beneath it, "You're already dead," Kurt is already watching. He gives her a head start to run. Then he hunts her down with a rifle, shoots her from behind while she's running, drags her back. The hunting element is crucial to understanding Kurt. He doesn't kill in a frenzy, he doesn't lose control. He gives his victims the illusion of escape specifically so he can experience the thrill of the chase. It's a power dynamic that mirrors the broader theme of New Blood. Everyone in Iron Lake thinks they know Kurt Caldwell. Everyone trusts him. And he uses that trust as camouflage for something truly monstrous. There's an episode where Kurt lures Molly Park, the true crime podcaster, to his cabin under the pretense of interviewing his supposedly alive son, Matt. Dexter, who has been secretly monitoring Kurt, follows Molly to the cabin and notices that the door only locks from the outside. He sees the hidden camera. He recognizes the setup immediately because he's seen this kind of thing before. He is, after all, America's foremost expert on serial killer methodology. Dexter intervenes and drives Molly away from the cabin, but Kurt simply waits and tries again later. Molly eventually disappears, and her body is found among Kurt's preserved trophies in the underground bunker. The relationship between Kurt and Harrison is one of the most psychologically complex dynamics in New Blood. Kurt becomes the father figure that Dexter won't be. He buys Harrison meals, he gives him a job at the truck stop, he listens to Harrison's problems and offers advice about dealing with rage and feelings of being different. In one scene, Kurt tells Harrison that if he were his son, he never would have walked out on him, and Harrison visibly absorbs that. He's been starving for parental validation his entire life, and Kurt serves it up hot with a side of venison. But Kurt's motivation is entirely predatory. He knows or suspects that Jim Lindsay is responsible for Matt's death. He befriends Harrison as leverage and as a potential target. There's a scene where Kurt puts on a white ski mask, pulls out a gun, and tells Harrison to run, just like he does with his female victims. The hunt is about to begin. Harrison begs for his life. And at the last second, Dexter drives up in Elric Kane's truck and runs Kurt over. The rescue happens with seconds to spare. That scene is terrifying because of what it reveals about Harrison's position in the story. He's caught between two serial killers, both of whom claim to care about him. His biological father, who abandoned him and now wants to reconnect, and the beloved town patriarch who fed him and employed him and counseled him and was fully prepared to shoot him in the back of the head while he ran through the snow. And then comes the worst part. Kurt doesn't dispose of his victims, he preserves them. He has an underground bunker beneath his cabin filled with bodies, over 30 women embalmed and displayed in glass cases like trophies in a museum. He dresses them, does their hair, arranges them in poses. Kurt visits this bunker the way other people visit a family photo album. These women aren't kills to him, they're a collection. When Angela Bishop finds the bunker in the final episode, after Dexter tips her off to its location, she discovers over 30 preserved corpses, including her friend Iris, who disappeared 25 years ago when they were teenagers, and Molly Park, a true crime podcaster who came to Iron Lake to investigate Matt's disappearance and never left. The discovery of Kurt's trophy room is one of the most disturbing visual reveals in the entire franchise. Worse than Brian's ice truck displays, worse than the Doomsday tableaus. Because these aren't staged murder scenes designed to send a message. This is a man who has been murdering women for a quarter century and keeping them like dolls in a basement. The intimacy of it, the care he takes with their appearance, the way he visits them like their companions, that's a level of horror that goes beyond violence into something that feels genuinely psychopathic. What makes Kurt's trophy room so effective as horror is the contrast between his public persona and his private reality. Iron Lake sees a generous, fatherly man who employs half the town and sponsors community events. Below his cabin, 30 women are preserved in glass cases, their hair styled, their clothes arranged, their dead eyes staring at nothing. Kurt doesn't see the contradiction. In his mind, he's being consistent. He takes care of his town, and he takes care of his collection. Both are acts of caretaking, at least in his twisted logic. The show draws a deliberate parallel between Kurt's trophy room and Dexter's box of blood slides. Both killers keep souvenirs from their victims. Dexter takes a drop of blood on a glass slide. Kurt takes the entire body. The difference is scale and method, but the psychology is the same. Both of them need a physical reminder of their kills, a record, a collection that proves they did what they did. Without the trophies, the kills become abstract. With them, the kills are permanent and tangible. Dexter can open his box and remember every person he's killed. Kurt can walk through his bunker and visit every woman he's murdered. Angela Bishop finding her childhood best friend Iris among the preserved bodies is the emotional peak of the New Blood investigation. Iris disappeared from Iron Lake 25 years earlier. Angela has spent her career wondering what happened. She became a cop partly because of Iris. The unsolved disappearance shaped her entire adult life. And now she's standing in a cave looking at Iris's semi-mummified body, knowing that the beloved town patriarch she's lived next to for decades murdered her best friend when they were teenagers. That discovery transforms Angela from a competent small-town cop into something more focused and dangerous. She stops being concerned about Jim Lindsay's feelings. She stops second-guessing her instincts. She starts pursuing the truth with the same relentless energy that La Guerta brought to the Bay Harbor butcher case, and the same directness that Dokes brought to his suspicions about Dexter. Angela represents the franchise's final evolution of the good cop who suspects Dexter archetype. And unlike her predecessors, she survives. Kurt also tries to position himself as a father figure to Harrison, which adds another layer of sickness to the whole thing. He feeds Harrison venison, gives him a job at the truck stop, offers parenting advice, bonds with him over shared anger and absent fathers. The whole time, he's grooming Harrison while simultaneously planning to murder him as revenge for Dexter killing Matt. Dexter and Harrison eventually discover the bunker together. They capture Kurt, strap him to a surgical table in his own underground trophy room, surrounded by his victims. Kurt's defense is that he saved these women because they were just runaways nobody cared about. Dexter stabs him in the chest while Harrison watches, then dismembers the body. Harrison watches that too. Harrison seeing Dexter dismember a body is a turning point for their relationship. On one hand, Harrison has his own dark impulses. He broke a wrestler's arm intentionally during a match. He admitted to Audrey that he thinks about hurting people all the time. He carries trauma from witnessing his mother's murder, even if he doesn't fully remember it. Part of Harrison understands what his father does and feels drawn to it. But watching the dismemberment also forces Harrison to confront what this life actually looks like up close. Not the abstract idea of a vigilante who kills bad people, but the physical reality of a man cutting another man into pieces with a saw. There's a difference between approving of the concept and watching the execution, and Harrison's reaction, going outside to get air while blood covers the surgical table, tells you that the reality is harder to stomach than the theory. The New Blood finale, Sins of the Father, tears everything apart. Angela connects Dexter to the Bay Harbor butcher through a series of discoveries. She finds titanium screws from Matt Caldwell's body in the rubble of Dexter's burned cabin. She identifies injection marks on previous victims. She contacts Angel Batista in Miami, who confirms that Dexter Morgan is supposed to be dead and that a former colleague, Maria Laguerta, was murdered after she suspected Dexter of being the Bay Harbor butcher. Angela arrests Dexter and tells him that Batista is coming from Florida with evidence. Florida has the death penalty. Angela's investigation across New Blood is actually one of the strongest detective storylines in the franchise. She starts with small inconsistencies. Jim Lindsay has no history before arriving in Iron Lake. His reaction to Matt's disappearance seems off. He's oddly comfortable around crime scenes for a hunting supply clerk. She cross-references the ketamine found in Jasper Hodges' system with injection marks that match the Bay Harbor butcher's methodology. She calls Batista, who remembers LaGuardia's investigation and is shocked to learn Dexter is alive. What makes Angela's work impressive is that she pieces it together without any special training in serial killer profiling. She's a small-town police chief who trusts her instincts and follows the evidence. She represents what LaGuardia was trying to do in Season 7, what Dokes was trying to do in Season 2, what Lundy was trying to do in Season 4. She's a good cop doing honest work, and unlike all of them, she survives. Angela's survival is significant because it breaks the pattern that defined the original series. In Dexter's Miami, everyone who got close to the truth either died or was destroyed. Dokes was killed, Lundy was killed, LaGuardia was killed, Deborah was destroyed and eventually killed. The message was clear. Discovering Dexter's secret is a death sentence. But Angela gets the truth, acts on it, and lives. She's the first person in the entire franchise who catches Dexter and doesn't die for it. That's not a small thing. Dexter is locked in a cell. For the first time in the entire franchise, he's genuinely trapped with no portal gun, no backup plan, no clever science to bail him out. And what does he do? He reverts. The code's first rule. Don't get caught. When Sergeant Logan, a good man who coached Harrison in wrestling, brings Dexter water, Dexter grabs him through the bars, bashes his head against the metal, puts him in a chokehold. Logan fires his gun backward through the bars, misses. Dexter snaps his neck. Logan was not a murderer, he was not a criminal. He was a good cop and a decent human being who brought a prisoner a tuna sandwich. Dexter killed him for the same reason he's always killed, to protect himself. But this time there's no moral justification, no code, no he deserved it. Logan's death proves what Dokes knew in Season 2, what LaGuardia knew in Season 7, what Deborah learned too late. Dexter Morgan is not a vigilante. He's a serial killer who sometimes targets other killers. When his survival is on the line, he'll kill anyone. Logan's death also reveals something important about the nature versus nurture debate that runs through the entire franchise. For 8 seasons and a revival, the show asked whether Dexter was born a killer or made into one. Brian Moser, who shared the same parents and early trauma but received no code, became a chaotic killer. Dexter, who received Harry's training, became an organized one. Harrison, who witnessed his mother's murder but had no training at all, still developed violent impulses. The show deliberately refuses to resolve this question because keeping it open is what makes the drama work. If Dexter was genetically predetermined to kill, then Harry's code was arguably the best possible response to an impossible situation. The code channeled an inevitable impulse into something marginally less destructive than it might otherwise have been. But if Dexter was made into a killer primarily through trauma and training, then Harry bears far more responsibility than the show usually acknowledges. The training didn't just manage the violence, it professionalized it. It gave Dexter tools and techniques that extended his career by decades. The truth is probably somewhere between genetics and environment, which is exactly where the most interesting moral questions live. And Logan's death crystallizes the practical consequence of that ambiguity. Whatever combination of nature and nurture created Dexter Morgan, the end result is a man who can snap an innocent person's neck without hesitation when his back is against the wall. The origins matter for philosophy. The outcome matters for everyone standing near the cell. Logan's death is the moment that strips away every excuse the audience has ever made for Dexter. For 8 seasons and a revival series, viewers rooted for Dexter. They wanted him to escape. They wanted him to outsmart the cops. They forgave his kills because the victims were bad people. The show was built on moral complicity. The audience was trained to be on Dexter's side. Logan changes that. Logan coached Harrison in wrestling. Logan brought hamburgers to Harrison's hotel room when the kid had nowhere else to go. Logan was friendly, straightforward, and kind. He didn't suspect Dexter of anything worse than being a guy who lied about his name, and Dexter snapped his neck to get out of a jail cell. There's no rationalizing that kill. There's no dark moral calculus that makes it acceptable. Logan is the kill that proves the audience was wrong to root for Dexter all along. Every viewer who ever said, "But he only kills bad people," has to reckon with Logan's death. Because Logan wasn't bad, he was good, and Dexter killed him anyway because the code's real first rule isn't only kill the guilty, it's don't get caught. And when those 2 rules conflict, rule 1 always wins. The show uses Logan's death to set up the final confrontation between father and son. Harrison has been told his whole life, or at least since arriving in Iron Lake, that his father only kills people who deserve it. That the dark passenger can be controlled, that the code makes it okay. Logan's death proves all of that was a lie, and Harrison is the first person in the franchise who refuses to accept the lie. Dexter meets Harrison at a snowy clearing outside of town. Harrison sees the blood, asks whose it is, realizes Dexter killed Logan, and something breaks inside him. Harrison tells Dexter to turn himself in. Dexter refuses. He turns to walk away, choosing self-preservation over his son one more time, just like he did when he faked his death and abandoned Harrison as a baby. And Harrison picks up a rifle. There's something incredibly telling about the way the scene is staged. Dexter's back is to Harrison. He's walking away. Again, the man who walked away from his infant son, who walked away from his responsibilities, who walked away from every difficult emotional situation in his life by portaling to a new identity or a new city or a new kill, is walking away one final time. And Harrison has to decide whether to let him keep walking or to stop him permanently. The rifle Harrison picks up is the same kind of weapon Kurt used to hunt his victims. That's not a coincidence. Harrison has been surrounded by rifles and hunting culture since he arrived in Iron Lake. Logan coached him in wrestling, but the town itself is steeped in hunting, in the culture of tracking and killing. Harrison doesn't reach for a knife like his father. He doesn't use a syringe or plastic wrap or any of the ritualistic tools of the code. He reaches for a rifle, the weapon of the place that briefly became his home. The conversation that follows is the most emotionally raw scene in the franchise. Harrison asks his father whether Rita and Deborah would still be alive if Dexter had never existed. The show flashes through every death Dexter caused. Logan, LaGuardia, Dokes, Lundy, Harry, Rita, Deborah, all of them dead because of Dexter Morgan. Dexter apologizes to his son, says he deserves a better life and a better father, tells Harrison to take the safety off the gun, says it's the only way out. Harrison pulls the trigger. Dexter collapses in the snow. His last words are, "You did good." As he dies, he sees a vision of Deborah holding his hand, then pulling away. She lets go, and Dexter is gone. Angela arrives and finds Harrison standing over his father's body. She considers the circumstances. A serial killer responsible for countless deaths, killed by his own son who was trying to stop him. Angela decides to spare Harrison. She embraces him, hands him money, tells him to leave Iron Lake and never come back. She wipes down the rifle and calls in an officer-related shooting for herself. Harrison drives away. Past Logan's body being carried from the police station, past Audrey's window, past everything that Iron Lake was supposed to be for both him and his father. He has Kurt Caldwell's bag of money on the seat beside him and Dexter's letter to Hannah in his hand. That ending, for all its controversy, accomplishes something the original finale never did. It provides real consequences. Dexter Morgan dies, not in a hurricane that he secretly survives, not in exile as a lumberjack. He dies on the ground in the snow, shot by his own son, paying the price for a lifetime of violence. The cycle that started in a shipping container in Miami ends in a snowy field in upstate New York. Laura Moser died in blood, Rita died in blood, and Dexter died in blood. 3 generations of violence, each triggered by the one before it. But Harrison chose differently than anyone else in this story ever did. He didn't hide the kill, he didn't run from it, he didn't create a code or a system or a justification. He stopped the monster and walked away. Whether that makes him a hero or just another broken kid with blood on his hands depends on how you look at it. But he did something Dexter never could. He chose to end it instead of perpetuating it. The image of Harrison driving away from Iron Lake with money and a letter and blood on his conscience is one of the most ambiguous endings in prestige television. He's free. He's alive, he has resources, but he's also a teenager who just killed his father, who witnessed his mother's murder as an infant, who grew up in foster homes without stability or love, who carries the same genetic predisposition for violence that Dexter inherited from the shipping container. The show leaves it deliberately unclear whether Harrison has broken the cycle or simply delayed the next iteration. He told Audrey that he thinks about hurting everyone all the time. He broke a wrestler's arm on purpose. He showed no hesitation when he and Dexter killed Kurt together. The capacity for violence is in him. The question is whether shooting his father was the last act of violence Harrison will ever commit or the first in a new pattern. Angela's decision to let Harrison go is also morally complex. She wipes down the rifle. She tells Harrison to leave and never come back. She calls in the shooting as her own. A police chief is covering up a murder and helping the perpetrator flee. Sound familiar? That's exactly what Deborah did when she learned Dexter's secret. Angela's making the same kind of compromised moral decision that destroyed Deborah, just on a smaller scale and for what feels like a more sympathetic reason. The difference, maybe, is that Harrison isn't a serial killer. He's a kid who stopped one. Angela is protecting a victim, not enabling a predator, but the ethical framework is the same. She's a law enforcement officer deciding that justice, in this case, means looking the other way. Whether that decision haunts her the way it haunted Deborah remains to be seen. Now, there's an interesting footnote here that I should mention. Dexter Resurrection premiered on Paramount Plus in July 2025. And it revealed that Dexter actually survived the gunshot wound. He was resuscitated in an emergency room, and the story continues with him traveling to New York City to track down Harrison. So the death in New Blood wasn't quite as final as it appeared. But in the context of the New Blood finale as a standalone piece of storytelling, the emotional truth of that scene remains. Harrison shot his father. Dexter told him he did good. And for that moment, the cycle was supposed to be broken. Now, we've walked through every major scary arc in the franchise, from the shipping container to the final gunshot. But there's one more thing I want to talk about before we close this out. The question that sits underneath every single episode. Every kill, every code violation, every death. Was Harry Morgan actually a good father, or was he the real monster all along? This is the conversation that Dexter fans have been having since the pilot episode first aired on Showtime on October 1st, 2006, and there's no easy answer. Because Harry Morgan loved Dexter. That much is clear from every flashback, every ghost conversation, every moment of guidance we see across the franchise. Harry loved his adopted son. He wanted to protect him. He wanted to keep him safe. But love and good parenting are not the same thing. And what Harry did to Dexter was not good parenting by any reasonable standard. Start with the foundational decision. Harry found 2 boys in a shipping container. He saved one, left the other. The boy he left, Brian, became the ice truck killer. That's a direct consequence of Harry's choice. If he'd adopted both boys, if he'd kept the brothers together, if he'd given Brian the same chance he gave Dexter, the entire ice truck killer storyline never happens. Deborah is never kidnapped. Brian never has to die at his brother's hand. Harry didn't just fail Brian. He created the conditions for Brian's descent into murder. Then look at what Harry did with the boy he kept. He recognized that young Dexter had violent urges. Animals were dying. Behavioral warning signs were everywhere. A reasonable parent, even a cop who understood violence better than most, would have sought professional intervention, child psychologists, behavioral therapy, institutional support. There were options. Harry chose none of them. Instead, he collaborated with Dr. Evelyn Vogel to design a behavioral code that would channel Dexter's violence into something productive. They didn't try to eliminate the killing impulse. They redirected it. They taught Dexter how to kill effectively and avoid detection, and they gave him a target list of people they deemed acceptable to murder. Think about what that means for a child's psychological development. Instead of teaching Dexter that his violent urges were something to be overcome, Harry taught him they were something to be managed. Instead of showing Dexter that healing was possible, Harry showed him that killing was inevitable, so you might as well do it right. The code doesn't treat Dexter like a patient recovering from trauma. It treats him like a weapon being calibrated. There's a conversation that happens between Dexter and Harry's ghost in Season 2 that reveals a lot about this dynamic. Harry appears to Dexter in one of his hallucination conversations and says, "I gave you the code. The dark passenger was all yours." He's trying to draw a distinction between the behavioral framework he created and the underlying compulsion that drives Dexter. In Harry's mind, the code was a safety net. The dark passenger was Dexter's problem, but the show consistently undermines this distinction. Dexter pushes back. He reminds Harry that as a child, Harry told him the darkness got into him too early in that shipping container, as if he was possessed by something external. Harry corrects him and says he meant Dexter was traumatized, not possessed, but the damage was already done. By framing Dexter's trauma as something that got into him rather than something that happened to him, Harry taught Dexter to externalize his violence. The dark passenger became a separate entity in Dexter's mind, something riding along with him rather than something coming from within him. That externalization made it easier for Dexter to kill because it wasn't really him doing it. It was the passenger. A competent therapist would have done the opposite. They would have helped Dexter integrate his trauma, acknowledge it as part of himself, and develop healthier coping mechanisms. Instead, Harry and Vogel created a dissociative framework that allowed Dexter to kill without fully accepting responsibility for the killing. The dark passenger isn't a diagnosis, it's a coping mechanism designed by bad therapy. Consider the body count that Harry's code produced. Over the course of the original 8 seasons, Dexter kills well over 100 people. Some of them were genuine monsters who deserved to face justice. But the code also gave Dexter a convenient moral framework for feeding an addiction. As long as the target met the criteria, Dexter could kill and feel righteous about it. The code didn't reduce Dexter's violence. It gave his violence a conscience, which made it sustainable for decades instead of burning out like Brian's chaotic spree. And the collateral damage extends far beyond Dexter's direct victims. Dokes died because of Dexter. Rita died because of Dexter. La Guerta died because of Dexter. Deborah was destroyed by Dexter. Logan died because of Dexter. Every innocent person who got caught in the blast radius of Dexter's secret life is, in a very real sense, a product of Harry's code. The code didn't protect innocent people. It protected Dexter's ability to keep killing. The innocent people were acceptable losses in Harry's framework because Harry only designed the code to keep Dexter from getting caught. Rule number 1, don't get caught, not don't hurt innocent people. Don't get caught. The distinction between those two rules is everything. A code built around don't hurt innocent people would have forced Dexter to consider collateral damage. It would have required him to think about whether his lifestyle endangered his family, his colleagues, his community. It might have led him to stop killing entirely rather than risk harming someone who didn't deserve it. But Harry's rule number 1 focuses exclusively on Dexter's survival. As long as Dexter doesn't get caught, the code is satisfied. If people around him are harmed because of his lifestyle, that's not a code violation. If his wife is murdered because he delayed killing a target, that's not a code violation. If his sister is corrupted and destroyed by learning his secret, that's not a code violation. The code has no provision for protecting innocent bystanders because Harry designed it to protect Dexter, not the people around him. This is the deepest failure of Harry's approach. He built a system that prioritized Dexter's concealment over everyone else's safety. And then he sold that system to Dexter as moral guidance. The code feels ethical because of rule number 2, only kill the guilty. But rule number 1 always takes precedence. When those rules conflict, concealment wins and people die. You can trace this hierarchy directly through the franchise. Dokes discovered Dexter's secret, threatening rule number 1. Dexter imprisoned him. Lila killed him. Rita's murder was a consequence of Dexter delaying Arthur's kill to learn from him, a decision that prioritized Dexter's personal growth over his family's safety. La Guerta was killed by Deborah because her investigation threatened rule number 1. Logan was killed because his death enabled Dexter's escape. In every case, innocent people died because the code's primary directive, don't get caught, overruled every other consideration. Harry might not have foreseen these specific consequences, but the logical endpoint of rule number 1 was always going to be innocent casualties. When you design a system where concealment is the highest priority, you are implicitly accepting that everything else, including other people's lives, is negotiable. Harry's code is a self-preservation framework disguised as a moral philosophy. And the disguise is what makes it so dangerous, because it allows Dexter to kill innocent people while still believing he's following the rules. And here's the hypocrisy that makes Harry's story truly troubling. Harry was having an affair with Laura Moser, Dexter's biological mother, Harry's confidential informant in the drug trade. When her cover was blown and she was murdered, Harry bore direct responsibility. His operation, his informant, his failure to protect her. He contributed to the very trauma that broke Dexter in the first place. The Original Sin prequel explores this relationship in detail. We see young Harry, played by Christian Slater, meeting Laura and developing feelings for her while she works as an informant. She provides him with information about drug dealers, and he provides her with a sense of safety that turns into romantic attachment. Their affair is conducted in secret because Harry is married to Doris, who is trying to have another child. The irony is thick. While Doris is home hoping for a baby, Harry is out creating the circumstances that will eventually bring a different child into their home, a child born from the violence his affair helped cause. When Laura's cover is blown, the show makes clear that Harry's handling of the situation was at best negligent, and at worst directly responsible. He was running an informant in a dangerous drug operation, having a personal relationship with that informant, and failed to extract her when the situation became untenable. Laura Moser died because Harry Morgan's judgment was compromised by his personal feelings. And then he adopted her traumatized son and spent the rest of his life trying to manage the damage he helped create. So the sequence of events looks like this. Harry runs a failed operation that gets Laura Moser killed. Laura's murder traumatizes her sons. Harry adopts one traumatized son and abandons the other. The adopted son develops violent urges as a direct result of the trauma Harry helped cause. And Harry's solution to those urges is to build a system that turns his son into a serial killer. Harry didn't save Dexter from the darkness. He organized the darkness, gave it structure, gave it rules, made it efficient. And when he finally saw the finished product, when he watched Dexter actually kill someone and saw the expression on his face, Harry couldn't handle it. He took his own life rather than face what he had built. The show frames Harry's suicide as a moment of tragic realization. Harry sees the monster he created and can't live with it. But there's another way to read that scene. Harry's suicide is the ultimate act of abandonment. He built a killing machine, turned it on, and then checked out before he had to deal with the consequences. He left Dexter alone with the code, alone with a dark passenger, alone with no one to turn to when things went wrong. Deborah had to deal with the fallout. Rita had to deal with the fallout. Harrison had to deal with the fallout. Harry was gone. Every death in the Dexter franchise traces back to that shipping container. Laura Moser's murder created the trauma. Harry's code channeled the trauma into killing. The killing led to Rita's death, Doak's framing, Lagerta's murder, Deborah's destruction, and Harrison's inheritance of violence. Pull the thread far enough and everybody in Dexter's wake connects to Harry Morgan's decision to train a child instead of heal one. The people around Dexter who survived did so by getting away from him. Lumen Pierce in Season 5 left Miami and never came back. Hannah McKay fled to Argentina. The families of Dexter's victims rebuilt their lives in his absence. The consistent pattern across the franchise is that proximity to Dexter Morgan is lethal. The people who stay die. The people who leave survive. And the person who kept Dexter closest, who designed the system that kept him killing for over a decade, was the first to check out. Was Harry a monster? Probably not in the traditional sense. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't sadistic. He didn't enjoy the violence he was enabling. But he made a series of catastrophic decisions driven by guilt, fear, and a misplaced belief that he could control something fundamentally uncontrollable. He chose management over healing, secrecy over truth, and control over love. And every person who died because of Dexter Morgan is, in some way, a consequence of Harry Morgan's choices. The scariest thing about the Dexter franchise is not any individual killer. Not Brian Moser with his ice truck dismemberments. Not Arthur Mitchell with his 30-year kill cycle. Not Kurt Caldwell with his underground trophy room. The scariest thing is the idea that a well-intentioned parent, armed with the wrong tools and the wrong advice, can create a monster while believing with their whole heart that they're saving a child. Dexter Morgan was born in blood. He was raised by a code. He lived by the dark passenger. And he died in snow, shot by his own son, who was trying to break the cycle that started in a shipping container 40 years earlier. That's the real lore of Dexter, not the kills, not the monsters, not the clever escapes or the dramatic reveals. The quiet, persistent horror of a family that was broken from the very beginning, passing violence down like a genetic disease, each generation inheriting the damage of the one before it, and adding new damage of their own. Laura Moser died in a shipping container. Her son Dexter killed hundreds of people across decades. His wife Rita died in a bathtub. Their son Harrison was raised in foster care after his father faked his own death. And when father and son finally reunited, the only way Harrison could stop the cycle was with a bullet. 3 generations, 1 shipping container, a code that was supposed to fix everything and instead ensured that nobody would ever be safe. The Dexter franchise spans 126 episodes across 4 series. the original 8-season run from 2006 to 2013, New Blood in 2021 and 2022, Original Sin in 2024 and 2025, and Resurrection, which began airing in 2025 and has already been renewed for a second season. Over nearly 2 decades, the show has explored the idea that violence is inherited, not just genetically, but environmentally and psychologically. The children of killers become killers. The students of violence become violent. The code that was supposed to contain the darkness instead became a delivery system for it. Michael C. Hall has carried this franchise across every iteration. From the original pilot directed by Michael Cuesta to the latest episodes of Resurrection. His performance as Dexter Morgan is one of the defining portrayals in premium television history. He played the role while privately battling Hodgkin's lymphoma during the filming of Season 4, the very season that many consider the show's finest achievement. He continued to work while undergoing treatment, and his physical changes were subtly masked by makeup and wardrobe. The personal resilience behind the performance adds another layer to a character already defined by hidden suffering. The music of the franchise, composed primarily by Daniel Licht throughout the original series and New Blood, provided the eerie, Latin-influenced instrumental textures that became synonymous with Dexter's world. The main title theme, composed by Rolf Kent, remained unchanged through all 8 seasons of the original run. That theme, with its close-up shots of morning routines that double as killing preparations, became iconic television opening credits. Blood that looks like ketchup, a shoelace that looks like a garrote, an orange slice that looks like a wound. The entire show condensed into 60 seconds of domestic horror. When you watch all of it in sequence, from the shipping container to the snowy field in Iron Lake, the story of Dexter Morgan isn't really a story about a serial killer. It's a story about a family disease, about the way trauma reproduces itself across generations, about the failure of good intentions when they're applied to problems that require humility, patience, and professional help instead of clever systems and moral compromises. Harry tried to manage what he should have tried to heal. Dexter tried to control what he should have tried to stop. Deborah tried to save what she should have tried to escape. And Harrison, in the end, tried to break a cycle that nobody before him had the courage to interrupt. Whether he succeeded or whether the violence will find him again is a question the franchise is still answering. But in that snowy field with a rifle in his hands and his father's blood in the snow, Harrison Morgan did something that no one in his family had ever done before. He chose to stop. The cultural impact of the Dexter franchise extends beyond entertainment. The show pioneered the sympathetic serial killer protagonist in ways that influenced an entire generation of television. Before Dexter, audiences were not accustomed to rooting for active serial killers. Tony Soprano was a mobster, Walter White was a drug manufacturer, but Dexter Morgan was a man who strapped people to tables and stabbed them in the chest. The show trained millions of viewers to empathize with a murderer, and in doing so, raised uncomfortable questions about how easily our moral frameworks can be manipulated by good storytelling. The show has also been cited in real-world criminal cases where perpetrators claim to have been inspired by Dexter's methodology. Plastic wrap, dismemberment, and the justification of a personal code have appeared in courtrooms as part of criminal defense arguments and prosecution evidence. The idea that a fictional character could influence real violence is itself a form of the show's central theme. Violence propagates. It spreads from person to person, generation to generation, screen to viewer, in ways that the original source never intended and cannot control. The series composer Daniel Licht, who scored the original run through New Blood, created an auditory landscape that became inseparable from the franchise's identity. His eerie, Latin-influenced instrumentals underscored every kill, every reveal, every quiet moment of dread. After Licht's passing, Pat Irwin took over scoring duties for Resurrection, but Licht's musical fingerprint remains the definitive sound of Dexter's world. The main title theme by Rolf Kent, with its close-up shots of Dexter's morning routine reimagined as preparation for violence, remained unchanged through all 8 original seasons and became one of the most recognized opening sequences in cable television history. From Jeff Lindsay's original 2004 novel Darkly Dreaming Dexter to the latest episodes of Resurrection, the franchise has grown from a single book into a universe spanning 5 television series, animated web content, comic books, and a planned Trinity Killer prequel. Through all of it, the central question has remained the same. Can a monster be a good person? Can violence be channeled into something positive? Can love exist in a heart that's also capable of murder? The show's answer, delivered across 126 episodes and nearly 2 decades of storytelling, is no. Love and violence coexist in Dexter Morgan, but they don't balance. They corrode each other. Every person Dexter loved was harmed by his violence. Every moment of genuine human connection was compromised by his secrets. The code promised balance. The show proved balance was impossible. That's what keeps you up at night, or in this case, puts you to sleep. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to our channel for more deep dives like this one. I'll see you in the next one.